got a lot of people here tonight. Yeah. I was going to see if I could find it. Oh, here. Here it is.
Rich, next to me.
Oh, wow, look at that. He found out who it was. Not him.
That was helpful to have input in who's our state public policy. He understands. But I told him, I said, sometimes engineers just see the facts that are on the table.
And maybe we should try and get you to let it do it on 200. There's no good for us to sell it.
Let's have it.
So, I mean, they do have school across, I guess,
Yeah.
but just ask them.
Yes, I agree.
Welcome them.
Yeah, I agree. I'm ready.
Welcome everyone to our Logan Municipal Council meeting for today, July 18th. It is 5:30. We're calling this meeting into order. Our first item in our agenda is our opening ceremony. And tonight it will be by Chief Jeff Simmons.
Hello, everyone. It's a big occasion for me. My daughter Jessica didn't think I'd ever be here in this place and this time. So I wrote down a few thoughts for the opening ceremony, and I hope you'll bear with me while I read that about our police department. It's entitled Logan City PD, Who We Are. We are 60 sworn peace officers backed and supported by a wonderful cadre of dispatchers, clerical staff, evidence technicians, animal and parking control officers, building staff, city administrators, retirees, and other law enforcement partners. None of our efforts are possible without the services and genuine support they provide. They make it possible for sworn peace officers to serve this community to the best of our ability. We are citizens and patriots who cherish this great country. In our oaths of office, we swear to defend the Constitution of these United States and promote liberty for all, even when at times we must temporarily deprive some those freedoms due to poor decisions or judgment. We are your neighbors, friends, and family. We shop, worship, live, and recreate. And like everyone else, we have hopes, successes, dreams, as well as difficulties, anguish, stress, and pain. We are imperfect and always will be. We make mistakes in our personal and professional lives, and when those mistakes are egregious or unlawful, like any other citizen, we are rightly answerable to society's justice. We are painfully cognizant of law enforcement's sometimes imperfect past and present. We are keenly aware that each time an officer misbehaves anywhere, trust and public confidence erodes here. While law enforcement has several origins, one we must and do acknowledge is the part some early law enforcers played in the search and recapture of enslaved human beings, and equally abhorrent actions during subsequent Reconstruction and Jim Crow eras. The enslavement of fellow human beings, our brothers and our sisters, will always be a horrific national stain and we must never forget. We are grateful and honored by the love of our spouses and families. Only they know the true cost of the hundreds of traumatic moments and officer experiences during a career. It is our families that, without warning or context, sometimes feel the brunt of our impatience, our stress, and our trauma that can manifest itself from some dark and haunting moment of our service. We ask for their forgiveness and continued patience. As officers, we are sometimes maligned and misrepresented and rarely acknowledged for the vital role we play in society or for the immense good we accomplish each day. At times, it seems that everyone who has not worn the uniform is an expert at what we do. We do not seek pity, rather we welcome helpful ideas to better serve. While rarely acknowledged, we wish all could see when our officers perform small, unrecognized acts of service. We see Davis Coppin and Darren Cook shoveling snowy sidewalks for people in need. We see Kendall Olson kneeling to say hi to a young lady and her dog on a street corner and later spending countless hours away from family tracking and apprehending perpetrators of graffiti. We see Brad Frankie working tirelessly to help an elderly lady through her mental confusion, all while guiding a drug task force that is second to none. We see Jessica Lowe and Rolando Mesa treat a man with respect and decency even when he's just tried to disarm them. We see Derek Grange working many long volunteer hours on K-9 pads and cabin improvements, all while finishing a degree and making our community safer from the scourge of drugs. We see Sabrina Jensen as she sacrifices precious time with her Danish family to serve her adopted community as our newest officer. We see Zen Waite work relentlessly to search a jail database of prisoner tattoos to identify a storage shed burglar. We see officers playing ball with kids, smile and give high fives and stickers. We see officers, when appropriate, change tires, move furniture, and even mow lawns for those unable to do so. These are just a few of the many examples of excellent service performed each day around our nation. Any one of our officers could be mentioned many times over for good works that often go unacknowledged and unappreciated. For every officer and person here, I promise you that somewhere your good, unseen deeds are being recorded. Someone is always watching. We have great women and men doing a difficult service. I trust them, and that trust grows each time I see them treat even the vilest of offenders with kindness, decency, and respect. These peace officers are true guardians of our community and will be needed and counted upon to be a light of safety and security in an ever-darkening world. Thank you. Will everyone please stand and join me in reciting the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you to the police department for doing all those great service acts for our community and for keeping us safe. Next in our agenda, we have the acceptance of the minutes and the approval of the agenda for tonight.
I would move acceptance of the minutes and approval of the agenda.
Second. Second.
Thank you. I believe Mark, Councilmember Mark, is on the phone with us. Are you there, Mark?
I am.
Great. So we'll do roll call to vote on this. Mark?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Jeannie? Aye. And Ernesto, aye. So we have approved the agenda for tonight. A reminder for our community, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. It looks like we have a bigger audience than many of the meetings that we have throughout the year. I think it's exciting to see civic engagement here and welcome the attendance of the scouts here. I think it's great for everyone to be involved in our community. So just a reminder for everyone tonight that our meetings are the first and the third Tuesday of the month at 5:30, and our next meeting will be on August 1st. Now is the time for anybody in the public, in the audience, that would like to comment or ask any questions to the mayor or the council regarding items that are not on the agenda for tonight. And just as a reminder for any person that is here that is also a candidate for the coming up elections, that this is not a time to promote yourself as a candidate, but you are more than welcome to come and ask questions or make comments on items that are not on the agenda for tonight. And if you'd like to do so, please come up to the mic and state your name and your place of residence, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
name's Matthew Fatuesi. I'm here to just ask that with the coming median income housing plan that's going to be discussed on the 27th, that you guys pay attention to the codes that are being added in there. They may seem good on the surface, but they're also a little bit more inclined towards the property owners when they should be more focused towards the people that are actually being affected by the rising housing prices. One instance I feel is worth mentioning is obfuscation of the term moderate income housing and affordable housing. It may seem like those can be used interchangeably, but affordable housing specifically refers to 30% of your income, whatever your income is, it doesn't matter, it's just 30% of whatever that makes it an affordable house for you. But meanwhile, they're trying to be included as the same thing as moderate income housing, which refers to 80% below the area median income, which right now is 40% or 40,000 or around there. So it may not seem like those two necessarily conflict, but when you're trying to get housing that's actually situated for those that don't make a lot of money and have a difficult time making more money, it's just, sorry, I'm losing track of what I was trying to say there. It's just those two are not equatable in any way whatsoever, so actually having code that lumps them together and considers them equal is incorrect in my opinion. It just seems a little bit directionless. It was a different aspect. In it, they also are going to address 4 different proposed plans that the state offered that they have to use wording verbatim for when discussing it, and the 4 that they chose are a little lackluster and again are focused more towards incentivizing the landowners to rent better, I guess, and that's just giving people a care when they've already been doing incorrect things, in my opinion. So there's 24 different recommendations that they have for what can be done, and with a little bit of imagination, there's even X allows for you to do 2 separate things if you wanted to. It just takes a little bit of imagination and actual consideration for those that are in the 25% of the poverty threshold in this valley, which I'm assuming that, I don't know, I'm just assuming here, so that's my bad, but I don't think any of you are in that poverty threshold or have been in a while, so it's a little rough, and I would hope that you guys show a little bit of empathy and consideration for what these code changes will entail for the actual people that it's focused on. Anyways, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matthew.
Joanne Bennett and Logan. I just have a comment about the opening. I had an experience this winter. The temperature was 8 degrees one evening, and an officer came to my house while my water froze. And if he's here, I want to give him a big thanks, because he came out to my home and was a huge assist to me. It was midnight. I had nowhere to turn for help, and he was there for me. So thank you. And then for the council, I just have a comment about one of our events that happened actually the first part of June. I might ask you if any of you are Marxist sympathizers or belong to any Marxist organizations, because I was shocked and offended when a director of DEI, a Marxist organization, came and presented here at our city council. And he doesn't represent me. Any Marxist organization does not represent me, and I don't think it represents the people here in our beautiful city.
Thank you, Joanne.
Hello, my name is Erin Bennett. So I have quite a few comments. Okay, so it has occurred to me that we have different background experience, right? So I actually had a position in a service organization that's similar to a city councilor position. I was also the chair of several committees within that organization over the space of about, I don't know, 12, 15 years, like all the way up to the very top. I also have a master's degree in business. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. So me, when I come and engage in the city council meetings and I see what's happening here, based on my background, I feel like you don't understand I feel like you think that maybe my response is disproportionate, but it's not considering the background. So, I mean, this is going to sound harsh, but if I had chaired almost any of the city meetings I've been to, I would be embarrassed, you know? So just as an example, in Robert's rules, when people like discuss something, right, like you guys discuss something, one of the things that we covered in the program that I was a part of when we had discussion meetings is that if you say something, you only say it once, right? You don't repeat yourself. So last city council meeting, I mean, we sat here for 2.5 hours while you guys just said the same thing over and over and over and over. So, and some of the people, I mean staff, you know, these guys have been at work all day. I'm pretty sure they have better things to do than listen to you guys say the same things over and over. And there again, it sounds pretty harsh, but also, like, read Robert's rules. Like, I'm not sure what kind of training you guys get in conducting meetings, if you have leadership training at all. And those things might be worth exploring for the benefit of our whole community. And I mean, also just to run meetings more effectively and be more considerate to the people here, you know, just that alone. Just be more considerate to people. That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Erin. She's still a candidate. Anyone else who would like to address the council or the mayor? Any comments from the council? Nope. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Next up, we have mayor and staff reports.
Thank you very much. Item 6A is the ratification of our new police chief, which is Jeff Simmons. We've asked the council to do a formal ratification, and then our city recorder, Teresa Harris, will administer the oath of office. But first of all, we'd like to acknowledge all the guests that are here tonight in support of Chief Simmons, especially his daughter Jessica. Also like to recognize the new chief from Utah State University, one of our sister agencies, and other members. Jason Bry, am I saying it correctly? Yes. Welcome again. We have great relationships with those groups, and we appreciate that. Again, just we're pleased to have a number of our police officers here for this event. So with that, we ask council for the ratification, and then we'll have Chief Simmons come forward.
As the oldest member of the council, I'll take privilege to move that we ratify the new chief, Simmons. I think he's excellent, and so I think we can all give him a unanimous support. That's my move.
I'll second.
Second that. Oops, great.
I think Mark, did you second that, Mark?
I sure did.
Great. It's been moved and seconded, and as well, happy to support this ratification. I think we have great candidates, and it's great to see Chief Simmons become formal chief. So it's been moved and seconded. We'll do roll call. Mark?
Aye.
Tom?
Yes.
Amy?
Aye.
Jeannie?
Aye.
And Ernesto? Aye.
Right.
Chief Simmons is now ratified.
I thought it would be closer.
Okay, Jeff, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Jeff Simmons,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and Constitution of the State of Utah,
and Constitution of the State of Utah,
and and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
as Logan City Police Chief,
as Logan City Police Chief,
to which I have been appointed
to which I have been appointed
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
We'd also like to recognize our new Assistant Police Chief, Curtis Hooley, if you'd stand up, and he will take an oath. And he will take an oath of office. We'll have, again, with the promotions internally, we'll have a number of other promotions in our police department, and that will be handled when they do the internal promotions with the swearing in as well. So thank you for your willingness to serve. And again, we appreciate all of our great law enforcement community, all you do to serve, and I know you'll support Chief Simmons in his future endeavors. So thanks to everyone, and for those that do need to slip out, you're welcome to do that.
We have an exciting agenda, if you'd like.
The next item on Mayor and Staff reports, 6B, we have a new board, some new appointments to a board. It's the Business License Review Board. Occasionally, we have an appeal that's necessary, and so we have 2 individuals that have agreed to serve on that board. It doesn't meet very often. They also serve on the Civil Service Board because it also doesn't meet very often. That's Russ Price and Bill Peterson. I don't believe they're here tonight, but we'd like to ask the council for ratification on those names as well, to the Business License Review Board.
I know them well and would support them and think it's a great choice. So I move they be ratified.
I'll second that.
The ratification has been moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call
Good
vote.
choices.
Mark?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Jeannie? Aye. Ernesto, aye.
All right, item 6C. Tonight we have a report from Cache County Executive David Zook. The last count I heard was that Logan was about 40% of the county, and he is making an effort to go around to all the cities, their council meetings, and we'd also like to recognize Sandy Goodlander, who is one of Logan City's 3 representatives on the Cache County Council, and we appreciate her representation of Logan. She kind of does the East Bench area. So thank you for being here and being involved. And we'll turn just a few minutes over to David. We had a good conversation yesterday about some issues that affect both Logan City and Cache County. So we appreciate that working relationship, and we'll give him a couple of minutes.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council, and thanks for introducing Council Member Goodlander. And thank you to the city for helping to prepare her for this role. She served on your Planning Commission for about 5 years, which was great experience, and we're glad to have her serving with us and representing Logan. And as you mentioned, you have 3 of our county council members who are from Logan, and you have a county executive who's from Logan. I'm not just the executive, but I'm also a resident. So thank you for your service. As you mentioned, Mayor, we did have a great meeting. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me, as well as all of your work on the various important projects. We had an opportunity to talk about transportation, to talk about housing, to talk about economic development, recreation, the fairgrounds, waste management, many very critical and important services and projects happening in our community. And just want to thank Logan City for your ongoing partnership. I know there's been some work over the past year in relation to waste management because of the transition, and I know there also have been some hard feelings related to that, but I just want to share with you some gratitude. And I'd like to thank Logan City for stepping up and helping and serving in so many different ways over the years. And I appreciate that because the county has always been smaller. The county as an organization, I mean, has been smaller than Logan City. Logan City is a large organization and often had the bandwidth, the expertise, the resources to be able to help it in so many different ways over the years. And waste management was one of those where you've helped and you continue to help. through our transition. Speaking of that transition, we are planning most of the communities to transition away from your pickup services as of October 1st. I know some of the communities have already transitioned away, and at least one might not be till next year, but the majority, including the county and the unincorporated areas of the county, will be transitioning as of October 1st. So thank you for your assistance in that transition. Isa's been instrumental in helping us with his expertise to know the questions we should ask and the things that we should be concerned about. So thank you very much for your help with that. I just wanted to give you maybe a couple of items of update as well regarding some projects that we're working on. I've spoken to you before about the receiving center. I know that's something that you've discussed. We do continue to look at a location for that. We have not purchased property yet, but we have been looking at some additional parcels within Logan as well as outside of Logan. And as soon as we do make a purchase, we'll, if it is in Logan City, we will be in touch with you and start talking to you about that process. We did just within the last couple of days submit the final paperwork to the state related to the funding for that project, and we anticipate receiving that soon. And just we would like to thank you for your partnership on that. It's likely that it will be in Logan because of this central location that it would provide, but we will likely be working with you on the project and getting those approvals in place. So thank you for your partnership on that. Speaking of projects, there are a number of projects going on right now that affect Logan City as well as other people in the community, transportation projects. Thank you so much for your work on 100 West. I know that project is moving along and will be done soon, and I know it will be such a great benefit to our entire community because of the traffic that will alleviate from Main Street. So thank you for that, and the work that is also ongoing with the Main Street study. I look forward to other improvements that might come out of that study. I also just wanted to mention briefly, there are a couple of other transportation projects that are happening around Logan that affect Logan. The SR30 project is recently underway. We are seeing construction happening out there at night, and the primary thing that will happen this year is putting down the road base and then letting that settle, and then the majority of the road will be built next year. But that'll be a great improvement, as will the signalization of 3200 South out by Ted's. That one is moving along very well and will be a great public safety improvement once that's done. Another public safety transportation project that is about to go underway is the installation of a fiber optic line through Logan Canyon. We've been working together with UDOT, our state legislators, especially Senator Wilson, who deserves the majority of the credit for securing the funding for this project. And then also we've been working with our federal delegation on this project to install 31 miles of fiber optic line through the canyon, which will then allow for the installation of cell towers. If you've noticed, there's no cell service for almost the entire canyon, and this will be a great public safety improvement. In addition to cell towers, UDOT will be able to install traffic cameras, traffic sensors, changeable message signs, weather station, a whole variety of other things that will be made possible because of this data line that will be coming in. $21 million in total was secured to be able to complete that line. So very thankful to everybody who's helped with that. It'll be a great public safety improvement. On a lighter note, just wanted to mention that the county fair is coming up in 3 weeks, just about 3 weeks from now, from August 9th through 12th. We invite you all to come out. It's the biggest party in Logan, maybe the biggest party in the county. Again, we'd love to have you all come out. We hope to see you there. It's a fun event. And just in closing, I'd like to thank you once again for the many areas where we continue to partner and to work together. I really appreciate the relationship with Mayor Daines as well as all of the council members. We partner together on things like the airport and our dispatch center and so many other ways that are critical to our citizens. I thank you so much for your service and look forward to continuing to work with you. If there's anything that I can be of assistance with, please do not hesitate to reach out to me or Councilmember Goodlander or other council members. Thank you so much for the time this evening.
Thank you, County Executive. Thank you, Sandy, for this as well.
I'm here.
Next on our agenda, we have council business and we have a planning commission update.
It's pretty short tonight. There are a couple issues that will eventually come to us, so I won't talk about those. And the only action item from their last meeting had to do with the mall project. And they had they conditionally approved the mall project with some discussion about green space and things that the developer is working with, so.
All right, thank you. Next, we have our action items for tonight. And first up, we have a public hearing for ordinance 23-21. And it's a demo zone. And Russ, would you give us a quick review of that?
Yeah, this is the Jed Willis down zone. It's pretty straightforward. Happy to answer any questions. It's going from MR20 to MR12. It was upzoned for Jed to get his building permit submitted, and then down zone to stop anything else from happening in the future.
For anybody that is tuning in, would you maybe give a little more detail on that? Because it sounds like, without more context, people may misinterpret that.
Sure, so this is an area in the Bridger neighborhood. There was some confusion on the lots and the subdivision, and he purchased a property thinking that he could build a duplex, but come to find out it wasn't a legal lot and the zoning wouldn't have allowed it, and so his property was upzoned to allow it. It expired, and then it was upzoned again, and then this down zone is to bring the property back into conformance and back into a uniformity with the surrounding areas.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions from council?
We've talked about this a lot. It's been through here a couple times and seems pretty clear.
I agree.
All right. This is a public hearing. If you would like to comment on this specific item on the agenda, please come up to the mic and state your name and your place of residence. Don't rush to the mic.
None of the scouts have a comment on this one?
All right, we'll bring it back to the council.
I would move approval of ordinance 23-21.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll do roll call vote. Mark? If you're...
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Jeannie?
Aye.
And Ernesto, aye. Ordinance 23-21 is passed, it's approved. Next on our agenda, we have a public hearing for ordinance 23-20, the vacation of public utility easements. Paul, please.
You bet. If you recall, I presented, I guess, several weeks ago, this public utility easement vacation located near Crayon Court in southwest Logan. I'd be happy to review or bring up any of these slides you'd like to see again. The applicant owns adjacent lots to each other and is working through a boundary line adjustment to combine those into one lot, and would like to vacate the public utility easement that would then be through the middle of the lot, because that's where the property line dividing the lots used to be. They're two separate processes. We do them in parallel with each other and then don't record one until they're both done and approved. What else can I tell you? You want to see any pictures as a reminder?
Sure.
That'd be helpful. Crayon Court's located just off 10th West at approximately 700 South. The two lots would be this existing lot here and a portion of this larger lot that the owner is selling to the owner of this lot. So he will own this area right here. That would be the utility easement to vacate once that property line in between the two is dissolved or adjusted. Just another map showing the utility easement on Crayon Court and the adjacent one on the property which he is purchasing adjacent to his property. This shows the combined vacation of the public utility easement and the creation of a new one to ensure that we're not severing a public utility easement, but making sure it's continuous even after this. He would dedicate those utility easements with his boundary line adjustment process. And just an overall picture of the vacation and the proposed utility easement dedication.
So currently there aren't lines that are running through that easement?
Correct, none that we know of, none we've been able to identify, and we have had no utility companies reach out during the notification period. We have had 2 people contact us as part of the notification. One was asking, what is a utility easement, what's going on here? We told them they were satisfied. The second one had questions about the ability to build additional buildings on this lot. The utility easements being dedicated, vacated really don't factor into that. We refer them to community development to talk about zoning and what the property owner could do on their property with that, or the 2 comments we've received. There were no others, right?
But it was your understanding that they want to combine all this into one parcel, correct?
That's what the boundary line adjustment would do, would combine the existing lot here and this piece of the larger lot, so that would be one parcel.
Right.
Correct. Everything within the green, I guess, would be one parcel.
So if he were to choose to divide that parcel at a later date, he would have to come back and do that property line adjustment and all of that again, correct?
Correct, if you were to divide it, yeah. And he would have to ensure there was access and those sort of things.
Yeah.
I think you might have already said this, but in this case, there is agreement between the 2 owners, right? That the placement of the new easement.
Correct. Yes, there's an agreement. He has already gone through with the sale of this piece of land with the county, but he hasn't done the process with the city, so there's definitely an agreement in place.
Okay. Any other questions, council?
Nope.
Mark, any questions?
No questions right now.
All right, this is a public hearing. If you'd like to comment on this specific item on the agenda, please come up to the mic and state your name and your place of residence. Bring it back to the council.
I move we approve ordinance 23-20.
Second. Did you?
No, you got it. You're fine.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. Mark?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Jeannie?
Aye.
And Ernesto, aye. Ordinance 23-20 passes. Next on our agenda, we have an item that was continued back on June 20th. It's a public hearing for Resolution 23-19 regarding the Transportation Master Plan. Darren, I know there is lots of information in this. Would you walk us through some of the most important details?
Sure, and then thank you, Chairman Lopez. It's good to be back here. We've had some time to take a look at what's in the master plan. We've had time to do a presentation offline with yourself as well as Councilmember Anderson as well. And I think there's been some good discussion. There's been some dialogue back and forth. We've taken into account some of the concerns that were raised in terms of are things auto-centric, or have we really addressed some of the questions or fully addressed some of the ideas of including transit and pedestrians in the bicycle community. And so my presentation is really geared more towards that. I can go back and do a little bit more if we feel like there's a need, but let me hit those topics first, and then we can talk about what more we may want to talk about. So the question came up, is this plan auto-centric? Is it really just focused on autos? And clearly, automobiles are the dominant mode of transportation. I think everybody can agree that that's currently the case. The plan does forecast, and this, again, these models come from the state and through the county in terms of our transit, our traffic demand model. And they project that will be the case at our build-out period, well, at the period that we're looking at here, at 2050. Now, if that were to change, if there's going to be a drastic reduction, which is entirely possible, we would definitely want to come back and revisit the master plan. I don't think that may happen in the next 5 to 7 years, and that's what our time frame is here. But that's the idea, is that it is geared more towards vehicles because that is the dominant mode of transportation. Does that put the other modes of transportation aside? And no, we'll take a look at how we would address that as well. But again, I want to go back to this idea that we have these levels of service that we're trying to attain for our roadways. And that makes it safer for the vehicles, but it also makes it safer for the pedestrians, the transit vehicles and facilities, as well as your bicyclists. It makes it safer for every mode of transportation to operate. Because those vehicles are the dominant mode of transportation, you got to manage that primarily. So let's take a look, though. What's in our master plan? We'll go to the next slide. So we did a really conclusive review of what's on the pages in the master plan in terms of referencing other modes of transportation. And as we looked at it, there's 56 pages, and that includes maps and it includes project lists. 27 of those 56 pages has some reference, if not full sections, that are dedicated to the integration of pedestrians and bicyclists and other modes of transportation and how to address those. And so this is a kind of a full list of what those are, but there's some key ones. Page 2 is right at the very front of the document, and it talks about a key function of the plan being these other modes of transportation and referencing these other master plans that are important to the success of this transportation master plan. Then if you move on to page 4, we talked about goals, and our number 2 goal is to integrate these other master plans and integrate these other modes of transportation. And we feel that was very important, so we made that a primary goal of the master plan. And as we kind of go on, there's different things. I thought number 19, page 19, was pretty significant. And it talks about where if we widen a roadway, or if the project calls to widen a roadway that would cause a significant impact to the community, then we need to look at other options as part of that process and not just say, let's just widen the roadway. And so it gives us that criteria to say, let's pause and let's step back and take a look at what we're impacting in terms of how we're pursuing the construction project. And I thought that was very relevant to some of the questions that have been raised in that regard. So at page 25, there's a whole list of pages there. Those are all the projects that we've identified. And in each project, we've gone in and we've said, okay, this has a trail, this has a transit facility, this has a sidewalk facility, or bicycle lane, that type of infrastructure. So we've identified in each of those projects. Federal funding, a lot of the federal funding these days is tied to making sure that we're accommodating other modes of transportation. So that's something that we have to do if we're interested in getting that funding. We do a lot of grant funding. Page 50, there's a rails trail, so they highly recommend that we consider that if the railroad were to go away, that we look at making that, turning that into a trail for recreational and movement of other modes of transportation. And then 53 through 56, this is a whole section in the plan, 3 pages that is devoted to alternative modes of transportation and how we integrate those modes of transportation. So when I did that deep dive into the document and really wanted to understand where we've talked about it and how it really is integrated into our plan, I felt like there's a lot there. We were actually doing that to see, is there more that we need to add? Is there something that we've missed? And as we looked at the volume of detail that we've added to this, our conclusion is we felt like it was pretty good. Now, if there's a recommendation from council that says that we should look at something more, we're always welcome to do it. But I just wanted to put this list together so you guys can have that and see where we've done a good faith effort to make sure it's not just autos that we're focusing on, that we're looking at all the various modes of transportation involved. And I just have one more slide, and this is our local residential street cross-section. It's any cross, all of our cross-sections look pretty similar to this. And you can see there's traffic lanes, and then there's parking, and then there's a park strip, and then there's sidewalks. So we include, sidewalks is a key part of this plan. This has been our standard for years and years. It's not something we're changing. So pedestrian movement. And then I just want to highlight, there's a little section just below that cross section, and it says possible section additives. And in that it says, as approved by the city engineer, stripe bike lanes, buffered bike lanes, and islands. And so this has been our standard for, like I say, many years. We've been heavily involved in really promoting the mobility of other modes of transportation other than vehicles. And anyway, I felt that was relevant to our discussion today, and hopefully that helps booster the understanding of the importance of these other modes of transportation in our city. The last thing I want to say, there's a little bit of discussion in terms of how is the public notified or informed of projects, and the master plan doesn't really specify that process, and maybe it's not really a process for that master plan, but more of a policy that as a public works department we need to work on and improve. And so we're committed as a public works department. Paul and I have talked, and we want to come up with a good policy, work with council, work with the community to come up with a good process that we can set as a policy that will enable us to better communicate our projects with the community and get them involved and informed and upfront as soon as possible, and have that dialogue. We feel like that's important. We appreciate that feedback that we've received in that regard. And so that's, in a nutshell, my presentation. We've talked a lot about this.
It was a big nutshell.
It is a big nutshell. I still have all the other slides in here if we needed to go back and take a look at maps or any of that information. I feel like we've done a lot of work here.
So can I ask of the two of you, do you feel like what has happened since our last meeting helps to alleviate the concerns that we've heard from citizens?
I think it does in some ways. I have some additional questions for myself, so can I ask those now, Ernesto?
Please go ahead.
So we just got the CMPO plan that was approved today. So, and I'm just assuming that is well integrated into this as well. I was trying to look at like the bike plans and putting them up next to each other and see that they do coordinate. And is that a safe statement that CMPO's plan, transportation plan through 2050 and this are compatible with one another?
Yeah, I don't know about the bike portion of the CPO plan.
It looked pretty close to what you had when I was just cherry picking stuff. But
When the CMPO started that plan, they reached out to the city and said, what plans would you like us to integrate, make sure we're
Okay.
coordinating? We included our existing transportation master plan. We gave a draft version of this and also the existing bike and ped plan for the city along with several others. So they went through all those, made sure all those projects were integrated, and then any that came up there, we would take their approved plan and coordinate through that. So yes, I feel it has been.
Okay. So you'd mentioned that if we realize that there's been a major shift, that there would be a review in 5 to 7 years. Can you outline what that format would look like? Would that be like coming back to council with revisions? Would it be public hearings? Can you just kind of share what that would look like?
Yeah, I think it could be a variety of things, and it probably depends on the size or the amount of the shift. So if there's a major shift, then we're going to come back with a full plan, a new master plan. But it could be that, hey, we're seeing enough of a shift that we just need to do an amendment to the master plan to accommodate a different mode of transportation, or to provide a different facility or a bigger facility for other modes of transportation. So there's a variety of different steps, and the amendment process is a little bit quicker, and we don't have to wait 5 to 7 years if we see that happening. 5 to 7 is just kind of our general rule of thumb for when we would look at this again. So if we saw that need earlier, we would look at addressing that. And if council saw that, you're welcome to request that we address that as well.
Okay, then one last question. So truck routes, this is a big issue for certain neighborhoods. Can you just explain, like I'm trying to read it, I was trying to understand, like if a truck is not on a truck route, is there a consequence to that? Because I know I work on 2nd West and we get blasted with trucks down that, and that's a primarily residential street where I work. But can you maybe just outline a little bit about the impact of truck routes and what that means for neighborhoods?
So the idea is that we develop roadways that are primarily geared towards moving traffic, and so these are our arterials and our collector roadways. And those roadways, they encourage trucks to be on them because they're a little bit wider, they give a little bit more room, and they are easier to maneuver on. If you think of 10th West, or we're trying to get 14th North open, hopefully that's very soon. But those types of roadways are a little bit larger and convey that traffic. So naturally, those truckers are going to flow into those areas and stay off of the residential streets. Now, does that preclude them from going on to residential streets? It's a little bit tough to do that. According to state law, they don't give a lot of options, and I know we do on Center Street. We have some regulations there, and really the state code says you have to kind of be able to show that from an engineering perspective it's not suitable for trucks. But in some regards, you don't want to limit trucks, because if you think of somebody moving and having a moving truck come to their house, or delivering furniture to a house, to a residential area, you need to have some ability for trucks to come in, and trying to figure out how to tell one truck company not to come in and another one it's okay to go in there. That gets a little bit complicated. And so what the idea is, we provide these better facilities that the truckers want to use. They don't want to be in a neighborhood and trying to navigate through a neighborhood where somebody's driving a golf cart or pushing a stroller, that type of thing. But if we provide these facilities, it makes it give them easy access to key points in the city that helps facilitate that plan.
So, because I know in other communities there'll be designated truck routes. So we do not have designated truck routes, correct?
There is a plan. In the master plan, there is a plan that shows designated truck routes.
So they would be designated.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's just, when you say designated, that's where we encourage trucks to operate in.
Do we use signage?
Because we don't, that's...
Not necessarily.
How do they know it's a designated truck route?
Well, I just think about it. I'd have to go verify. Are they signed well? No, they're not. I do think there are some truck route signs, I've seen some. We'd have to review that and probably,
Add some?
yeah.
Because I think there's definitely trucks that go through, they may not be the optimal streets, but they definitely do them to avoid the busier roads. And I think that to me is a concern for some of our neighborhoods, that, you know, when you're scooting over onto something to avoid Second North or to avoid Main Street, it does have an impact on the neighborhoods, so.
I have had some of the larger trucking companies, mostly from out of town. I received emails before saying, can you please send us your truck routes? And we send them the map, and I don't know what they do with it, or if they follow it. But we have had, I know companies are aware of that when they come through town for that reason. Now, whether that's a everyday route or they're bringing an oversized boat through town, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But we have had some ask. And then enforcing, I don't think there's any teeth behind that, meaning if you're not on a truck route, there's a consequence for that unless it's a restricted road, is my understanding.
And they'd be restricted by weight or?
Well, the historic district on Center Street is a restricted from truck traffic. I think it's how it is. Not necessarily weight or noise, but from truck traffic. And that's the only one I know of within Logan City.
Are there signs to that effect?
Yes,
I think so.
there are. Okay, I have seen those.
I don't drive a truck, so I probably don't pay attention to them.
We've had discussion where it came up on some UDOT roads before, and it was mostly a noise ordinance for the Jake brakes and that sort of thing. That's all I'm aware of. I have a couple. Just to add to that, I've seen in some places where they obviously had designated truck routes, but a truck was allowed to go 6 blocks, 4 blocks, whatever it is, obviously to meet a need to haul something to a specific location that's in a residential area. I mean, that's a way to solve that. Okay, I have a number of things. Some are just questions, and then some are pleadings. The western bypass, I mean, I always heard that our 10th West was going to be a bypass, but it kind of disintegrated into not a limited access. And I would hope that if we're going to do another highway out there, that we create it as a limited access to some degree, to make it truly a highway and not what our highway between Smithfield and Logan was, you know, supposed to be a highway, but it's not. Okay. Is that what your intention is?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's not a lot of the discussion has gone in that direction. Now, we don't have a final plan yet, but that's been on.
Well, they can deteriorate by inches, basically. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. One more driveway, one more access, so that it doesn't meet the purpose. There was a point made, I think, by Mike in some of the planning that we intend to reinforce the grid system. Logan was built on a grid system, as City of Zion basically was, and then it fell apart for a number of years. Where I'm assuming that your transportation master plan, I didn't see it in there. Maybe I did, but I don't remember it. The grid system ought to be reinforced.
We fully believe that, and there's a map in there that actually goes and it shows where that grid system should reside.
That's good. The third thing is on 2nd East, it was a great idea, but then we stopped at 3rd South. And I know in your plan you say that's a good idea sometime out in the future. You know, that could be 20, 30 years. I've come through there almost daily, and there's always a backup. You know, it's not a good solution, and I don't have the exact solution, but I would urge that we accelerate that connection to Providence, the Gateway Drive, because that road is working very well.
You're talking, sorry, on Second East.
Second East should extend south through, I guess River Heights has property there, but somehow there should be some negotiations.
Well, and that's part of that CMPO master plan. So
Okay.
that is on.
My point is that it be accelerated.
Right, and again, it's outside of our jurisdiction.
Right.
So you kind of have to rely on the overall master plan on that.
But I know you can be persuasive.
And to that point, when the river was developed, we required them to dedicate or preserve right-of-way through that corridor. There's an agreement where they are to build that right-of-way as that develops further, so we're really pushing for that.
Yeah, I think it would be a big mistake not to do it, because it's a bad intersection. This is a pleading. First, I just want to compliment you. The whole report, I read it, and it's a lot of good detail. There's a lot of effort that was put into it, and I know it'll be used in the future. But I found something that really troubles me. I spoke with the mayor. I've spoken with you. The light at 400 North and 600 West. This whole conversation here is about speaking on behalf of Ellis neighborhood. It's been hurt by a number of things, but it's one of the really intact neighborhood as far as home ownership goes, according to the chair. The light that was put onto somehow I hit the wrong button here, but it went off, but it's shown on one of the plans where lights and future arterials are to go. And it shows 400 North being an arterial, or a collector street at least. In other words, going from 1st West out to 6th West. That means that it will be designated to have greater and greater traffic. And just for the public, we have a new school on 3rd North and 4th West, Ellis. And we have a collector street, or an arterial really, on 2nd North. And now we're planning one on 4th North. The little children, the people that are pushing strollers, they don't have a chance. And I would really try to use our brain power to try to get that traffic on the street that's already been used. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense, and what we would like to propose is that an approval from council that would recommend that be eliminated as a collector and reduced to a residential street.
Thank you.
We're supportive of that.
One small token you could do is put an additional stop sign. People don't like stop signs, and they would go back to the 2nd North or something like that.
And we've already talked, as part of the project, we've talked about adding the stop signs in that first intersection just east of 6th West.
I know that all of these ideas are encroaching on some neighborhoods. I think 1st West. It's really not a neighborhood. I mean, maybe I'll offend people, but it's already got a lot of traffic, and we've made that plan. I mean, 4th North is a highway, we know that. But if we can avoid cutting through another neighborhood that's intact, that would be good. End of speech.
It sounds like an amendment.
So, well,
If you could do that as an amendment, I would appreciate that.
so Darren, I was going to ask you, when you said you would appreciate it if council would say, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but to reduce a collector road to a neighborhood street category, is that something that should be done in part of the approval of this transportation master plan? Is that something that should be done separately?
No, I think it can be done as part of this master plan, and then we'll make that adjustment to the master plan after. That portion of roadway, it was looked at in at the year 2050 of being needed to go to a collector. So it wasn't until the very end of the life cycle of this master plan that was needed. And so there's a lot that can happen between now and 2050. And so to be able to reduce that to a residential street, we're absolutely confident that we can do that without impacting the master plan.
Okay.
And it's very relevant to what we're trying to accomplish, and so we agree that that's a great solution. And that recommendation to do that by council.
When we come to the approval, let's insert that. Thank you, Gene.
But I do have another question.
Can I make one point of clarification on that? Correct if I'm wrong, Darren. In the plan, we found there's 2 different maps that give future classifications of roadways. One of those maps, because we anticipate that, already shows us and the other one doesn't. So there's kind of a conflict on that classification. And our intention was to correct that to make sure it's shown correct. And so it's not even a full amendment as much as an edit on one map.
That's a good
Okay. Well, we could just include that language that we want that to be, made clear.
Sure, yeah.
My question was, CMPO does a master plan, we do a master plan, transportation plan. How do they intersect? And who trumps who?
The CMPO, they gather all the different projects, transportation projects that are desired by the different municipalities throughout the county.
Okay.
And then they vet those out, and then they use that to establish funding potential for those projects, so grant funding that comes from the state. We participate in that process of providing them comments, providing them what our plans are for our streets. And if there's a conflict there, we work that out through that process. Is it perfect? It works pretty good most of the time, and there may be 1 or 2 little things that are different. One of the things we worked out recently with North Logan was a 400 East question, and we were saying, oh, our 400 East is a collector, and they're saying, no, it's not, it's a residential. But what it ended up being is that their definition of the roadway and our definition of the roadway were exactly the same. It just, they had a different name for it than our name. And so we kind of worked those things out. They were a little bit heated about it, and then as we talked about it, it's like, okay, it makes sense. We're still together. And so with this master plan, we've looked at the other master plans from the neighboring municipalities to try to make, and as well as the CMPO, their master plan, as well as the county's new master plan that they're proposing, and trying to make sure that our roadways are copacetic with what's been planned from those neighboring communities. I feel like that we've been successful with that.
And so I understand that. I'm just worried that, CMPO comes in and says 1400 North is going to be a 6-lane throughway clear to the Highway 23 or whatever. And that's their plan. And so.
What's that?
Sorry. I haven't experienced, and I guess I haven't looked at it. The CMPO doesn't build roads. They fund projects that are applied by cities.
Okay, all right. Because
does that help? Does that make sense?
It does help, but it's interesting that they create a master plan.
Mm-hmm. And the reason they do that is for funding eligibility.
Okay.
And so a city will come and apply, and sometimes cities will partner for an application, and then the CMPO chooses to give that city funding or not. But they don't have jurisdiction that I'm aware of to come into Logan and say, we're going to build this road, or this road needs to be this way. They may come and say, hey, we have the recommendation, or we think this is a good idea, but I've never experienced them being able to build or fund or dictate a roadway without a city saying, we support that.
Okay. And my only last comment would be, and I don't know if it's even appropriate, but I remember when they put the large poles on First East, the large electric poles, especially the one at 3rd South. And the neighborhood was justifiably upset. And I remember, and it was before Mark's time, I believe.
Actually, can I just offer a slight, actually, the neighborhood was not upset. The Light and Power Department had talked to the people that lived there. It was citizens who drove along that street were upset about the visual, but they actually had talked to the neighbors, and so the pushback was not from the neighbors, it was from people traveling the corridor.
Okay. But the only point I was going to get to was the fact that Light and Power didn't really think they had to tell anybody when in Planning Commission, because Planning Commission ended up hearing a lot of complaints about that particular project, and they were like, well, we didn't realize we don't usually come to Planning Commission or do any of that in this sort of environment. And perhaps it would be appropriate for us to somehow include in a Planning Commission kind of style big road projects for public comment. And I don't know what that would look like, and Mike might, be back there in the corner going, don't you do this to me.
This is part of that idea that we come up with the policy and how we roll these out.
And that's what I was thinking, that's a mechanism that we already have in place that we might be able to utilize to make sure that that information gets out, because I know, especially we've been talking about Ellis, and Sue is the chair of the Ellis neighborhood, and she's sitting back there, hiding back there. And I know that she very carefully looks at all those agendas, and she makes sure that she sends that information out to her neighborhood group. And that's the perfect thing for neighborhood councils to be involved in and doing. And I think it might be a good collective way for us to make sure that those projects are vetted in a public manner. So, anyway, sorry, that was a little off topic.
Good thought. Yes. And I agree, Light and Power is the worst.
It was before Mark was here.
Just a couple of comments, maybe just seeking confirmation during some of our discussions. I think somebody emailed us, or I heard the comment in the recording that people are afraid that once we pass a plan, it can no longer be modified, or that they're funded per se, and that they're not able to influence the change. But I know Paul made a comment in our meeting. If you wouldn't mind just giving a quick brief summary of what you commented, because I think it's helpful for people to know that a plan is not set in stone to begin with, and there is opportunity to change and modify things.
Hopefully I give the right comment. Yeah, so a master plan is typically viewed as first off, it's a very 30,000 foot or conceptual view of whatever the topic is, be it transportation or water or development or whatever it may be. It doesn't have the ability to get to any sort of detail, design, even individual project scope, and so it's just a conceptual level. Master plans are used as guiding documents. So as you develop a capital improvement plan, you should review the master plan and say, where's our project list? Are these still the priorities? It's a chance to review that and say, no, this has changed the last few years. For example, a lot of the development we've had down on 10th West near Costco and Blue Spring, that changed some of our transportation priorities. The master plan didn't identify 800 West above some of the other projects we're still working on. But because of that development pressure, we reviewed the master plan as we developed a capital improvement plan, and those changes had to be made. So it's not a set in stone document, meaning you have to do this project before this one. But at the time the plan was developed, with the data available, those were the priorities that we're seeing. And so we use it as a review for a guiding document as we develop capital improvement plans and budgets, which is where the funding happens. A master plan does not, Rich can correct me, does not allocate funding or approve expenses or anything in that fashion. We use it sometimes to, I'm thinking of a water master plan. We may use it to say, here's the projects that need to be done to maintain water quality. So to do those projects cost this much money, so we may use it to help guide a utility rate study or maybe an impact fee rate study or things like that, but it doesn't approve or allocate funding in any way. And it's the 5 to 7 year time period, regardless of a shift in mode of transportation or anything. We try to review all the master plans we oversee every 5 to 7 years for updates, regardless of change or no change. Was that a comment?
Yep, that's it. Thank you. Any other comments from the council? Questions, Mark?
Now, getting to go last, I think you all have asked all the questions that I had, and I think I'm good. Yes, thank you for asking. Paul, nice job explaining the CMPO. I think that was pretty important.
Thank you. I think I heard nice job.
So, are we ready for public comment?
Yep.
Yeah. This is a public hearing. If you would like to comment, if you didn't have the opportunity to comment last time that we had a public hearing on this specific item, and you would like to comment on this specific item, now is your opportunity. So please come up to the mic and state your name and your place of residence, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Yes, please, take time. Once you hear the alarm.
I know. Dr. Gail Yost, I live in the Wilson neighborhood, and one of the things I'm concerned about is as traffic has gotten so bad on our street at the more critical times, how do we ameliorate that kind of traffic backing up 2 blocks? And we can't get out of our own home and space, no less get across the street to park on the other side of the street, because if we have our driveway filled up, we can, whoever's trying to park can't park near us, and then they have to come across the street somehow. Obviously, we're in the middle of the block. We really wouldn't want someone having to go all the way around, especially some people who have disabilities. What are we going to do to make it better? Because the traffic is at the point of not being approved, not in a place that can be fixed. How do we fix it? So I really am concerned about this, because it goes all the way up and down First East to where we have only a bike trail on our side, on the west side, and there is an extra parking area on the east side. And yet we had today, just tonight, we had 2 blocks of backed up streets. 2 blocks. And that's with the traffic moving. And that means that that's really, I don't know if it's fixable at this point. So I'm concerned about what is already happening, plus what's going to happen in the future, because we can't afford to have any more widened streets right there. And we can't afford to have anybody getting hurt, because there are some people who don't know that the middle lane is only for turns. It is not to be going all the way down the middle and dismissing anybody who's trying to cross or trying to park or anything. And we really are having
3
a
minutes.
major problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yost. And we'll allow all the public comment to happen, and then after the public comment, if you guys want to answer or comment on those, that feedback. Good.
Well, Mayor Daines, council members, my name is Ryan Bowen. I live on the west side, southwest side of Logan, along 1400 West, and my comments are actually in relation to the western bypass corridor that is proposed through that region. It might seem that my comments are related to not wanting a road right through, a big busy road right through my backyard, which may be true. I don't plan to necessarily live there forever, but I do hope to be a Cache Valley resident for the rest of my life, and so having a nice bypass through Logan, I think, is an important topic and something that is worthy of further discussion and thought about what is the optimal place to put that bypass. If you look at that region, maybe years ago that was a good consideration for where a bypass may go, especially if 10th West wasn't considered as a main artery. It had been widened to the lanes that it is. But if you look at it now with the development that's taking place with the Henry's Point neighborhood, the Green Meadows neighborhood, the proposed Willow Lakes, the Rivergate, and Sugar Creek areas there's a lot of development taking place. Of course, you've got Woodruff Elementary with a number of students that walk along those roads from clear west of 1400 West, and I believe that having a main corridor or western bypass right through that region as close to 10th West as it is, and with as much residential and development that's taking place there, will make that an ineffective bypass. And if you look at how that proposed bypass goes, it starts at 1900 West, curves into 1400, and then curves back out to 1900. It seems like it would be a much more reasonable and effective plan to keep it further west, and consider that right now is an opportunity to solidify that as a bypass before it gets developed and made much more difficult, which has been the case in those neighborhoods that I suggested. So I hope that you'll consider that and as you put your names to sign off on a plan. I know we talked about that as just a plan, but something that will be given credence and view going forward, and that as you put your names on something that will be considered as an important part of transportation in the coming years, that you'll consider what would make the most effective bypass. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a few comments. First,
Just state your name, please.
Erin Bennett. With respect to the truck routes, I just took a landscape architecture course when I was a freshman in college, but I think the idea is that what these guys were saying is that you build pathways or roadways that are intuitively people would prefer to take, and just like the southwest side needs to sometimes deal with too much traffic, sometimes our neighbors have to deal with trucks, and we can't restrict trucks from driving around town because we live in America. With respect to, I appreciate what you guys were saying about notifying the public, and I had a thought on that as well as the planning of the mall property. And I was watching, I can't remember what it was, but so state code, they've developed a new planning commission for cul-de-sacs, and I can't remember what it's called. Maybe Lester might know the name of it. But it might be it's like an intermediary planning commission, so it's between city council and the planning commission. Have you heard of it? I'll try to watch it again, but so it's designed specifically kind of to be an intermediary, and it might be a good board or committee to resolve issues like informing the public of transportation and also, kind of gray area planning.
Thank you.
Frances Bushin. I live in off of 12th North and 2nd East. I came here for the redevelopment issue, but this transportation has also implications there. I think the development of Logan, you're going to have more and more traffic, and I just don't understand how you're going to deal with the pollution. I guess that's the main thing. I don't understand all this development in the city without addressing the red air days. So.
Thank you.
I'm Camilla Schultz. I live 18 South, 14th West. My comments are pretty limited. I just want to kind of talk on a few of the key points that were shared during the presentation. And again, I will give my respect to these two gentlemen. I know them well and have nothing but respect for the work that they do. I think there's a few misguided approaches being applied. First, level of safety or level of service, it's not a safety measure. It's a measure of how quickly a vehicle can travel through an intersection. Nothing more, nothing less. It does not equate to a safe intersection. So that's an important understanding to have. They're graded from A to F, and most cities should be aiming for a level D, level of service. If you are always receiving a level A, your intersection is probably not a safe intersection for anyone outside of a vehicle. Number two, the dominant form of travel currently is vehicular travel. That was intended, and policies were implemented to create that situation. But you are not reacting to what people are doing. You are directly influencing what they will do. And that's important to know. For instance, in the Netherlands, most of their infrastructure for bicycles and pedestrians was installed within the last 30 years. And they are the world leader in safe infrastructure. It wasn't done, in the 1970s, they were having protests to keep their roads safe. They were following the same principles that we have been applying in the United States since the 50s. It took them laying down in the street to get their policies changed. And they didn't do it by mass projects, they just did it as they had to do routine maintenance on the streets. But 30 years, they've transformed their country. You're seeing the same thing happening in Paris and through many other communities around the world, including in the United States. So I think it's very important to understand that the policies that you set here will influence what you see in 30 years, not the other way around. If you're waiting for the public to just suddenly get on a bike on a road that is not safe for them to travel on in a bike, they won't do it. They'll stay in their car, especially if they have children. Your policies will create what we build on the street, the infrastructure you put in will create that atmosphere.
3 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay. Number 4, a master plan should be a multidiscipline process. This transportation plan affects land use, it affects economic growth, it touches equity issues. If it's only being held by one department, it's not truly seeing the different perspectives that are needed to be able to address the many issues.
Thank you. Time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sue Sorensen, Ellis Neighborhood. I just want to tell you thank you. I really think that this process, the mayor having the vision to get the neighborhoods going again, has made a huge difference for all of us, and especially in my neighborhood. And thank you for allowing Jeannie to be our council rep. That has also made a big difference. And these gentlemen have been nothing but kind, along with Russ back there, who have helped us in being able to know what to say and what to do to help make our neighborhood a better place. And I thank all of you for that. I'm hoping with the downgrade of the road, the light goes away too. So I'm hoping that will happen too. But and I also love your policy idea. Love, love, love that there'll be something in place, and I hope that'll be a sooner than later action, because it's hard as a neighborhood, because you're right, I do look at every agenda. I try to send it all out. I point to them. This will affect our neighborhood. This will do whatever. And it's just nice to not have to find that out by somebody out measuring the street. It's better to know when it's coming. But thank you, just want to thank you. And thank you to Craig Carlston for still being my favorite 4th grade student.
Thank
It's
you.
a good thing I didn't go to your school. I'd be very insulted right now.
Did he pass or did he?
I don't know if he was the favorite. Obviously, he passed.
Eventually.
I'm Catherine Philpott. I live in the island area. I spoke last time this was discussed. I would like, since it seems like you're making some conditional plans, maybe we could kind of make a conditional plan if you choose to approve this, that we update our bike master plan. I tried to do some research and I'm not gonna lie, I thought you guys were goofing me because the master plan's from 2015 and there's a lot that's happened since then. Now we have bird scooters that are in town. I'm really afraid that you guys don't understand that bikes aren't supposed to be on sidewalks. That's not a lane of travel for them, so regardless of how wide the sidewalk is, they're supposed to stay on the streets and they're supposed to obey traffic laws. So it's actually illegal to ride on the sidewalk.
We did, yeah, in a minute, we did update our micromobility ordinance plan. So actually on wider sidewalks, it is legal for.
So like Center
bikes.
Street would be about the widest sidewalk?
Well, and a lot of our shared use paths are, what, 8 to 12 feet?
But isn't there a
What,
restriction?
Is that wrong? 8 feet, yeah.
And isn't there a restriction for downtown?
Yeah.
Historic downtown?
Yes.
Well, I think
Not
on
really a lot
the
of
scooters, we're gonna like geo-fence that area out, but again, I mean, you can't ride on Main Street downtown, so I think that was, I mean, isn't that correct? You can't
You
ride.
could ride on Main Street downtown if we had a plan in place to allow that.
Well,
We could.
it's just,
It's not out of the way.
but again, on the wider sidewalks, you can ride, I mean, at slow speed.
You can, and it has its own problems with that, pedestrians. It's hard to get pedestrians and cyclists in the same area and make it safe for everyone. Same with cars, we all do, there is issues to the plan. But maybe if we had an updated one that was more involved, because the one from 2015 is not updated. And there's electric bikes now. There's a lot more convenient ways to travel on bicycle. And maybe if we just conditionally plan that, because I don't want tomorrow's problems to be tomorrow's problems. I want them to be the problems of today, so that we aren't backtracking and spending more money to fix these issues we could have just avoided altogether. I mean, I think that's just a smart way of planning and building, but I don't really have
And that
expertise in
point's well taken, and we actually have talked about updating our bike pedestrian master plan.
Yeah, and I would really appreciate that, having that be more directly involved, because I also read through your master plan, which is 138 pages when I printed it off my computer, like, old people do. But there wasn't a lot of talk about it. It referred to the 2015 plan. It's not really relevant, I don't find, today, especially after COVID. A lot more people are on bicycles and they are using electric bikes. Those travel at higher speeds. It can ease up congestion and help everyone, but I don't think it should just be disregarded and kept. Like, I think it's due for an update, and I think that could be something that is collaborated on with this transportation master plan, because it's not an auto master plan. So.
And if you'll sign in and leave me your email, I'll send you our updated, was that about a year ago we updated our micromobility ordinance? I'll send that to you just for your information. You might be interested.
And we worked with the county and lots of people.
So just leave your email on the sign-in sheet and I'll send that to you.
Okay, for sure.
Remind me of your name again?
Catherine.
Catherine, got it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think the sheet's outside.
Anyone else would like to comment on this specific item?
Good evening. I'll keep my comments short and within, 3 minutes, hopefully a minute. So I'm Joel Nelson. I'd like to also speak on the redevelopment for the mall, but for the master plan on transportation, myself and my wife, friends and family live on the 1100 North, 200 East area. I've also lived back on Northwest Logan,
and kind of seen quite a few of the developments on the master plan as things were executed, on actual pieces of roadways and whatnot. I have quite a big concern, like with the others. I just want to reiterate that I'm another citizen that validates what the previous folks were saying about bikes and things of that nature. I would like to probably stay in that world. I've kind of, as older I get, I have to kind of pick and choose my battles as far as what I can get out on a bike. Electrification is helping, but yes, I think that there's quite a few things. I would love to hear just some thoughts, if you could take this as inputs. When I was working with Lyle Hilliard, just kind of off and on with some state level stuff when he was a senator, we'd comment on things like this in transportation. And he said that his standard that the state uses is education, engineering, and enforcement. And I was trying to get him evaluation because that brings the community to it. But right now it feels like we're very much in engineering side, but yet are there ways to interface with the community by which we can also get education and also with our local peace officers to make sure we have good enforcement that kind of promotes this whole transportation plan in the future. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Johnson. I'm a resident of Logan. I just want to comment on really two things, but mainly one, and I think that's the Western Bypass. I think it's a really important part of the future of Logan is making sure that we can get traffic that's going around town rather than through town. We look at Main Street and 10th West, and they're just getting busier and busier, right? And so we're getting that traffic around town. And I just want to echo what I think Tom said and Ryan was saying, that I think where the Western Bypass is currently planned needs to be looked at going a little bit further west. When you look at that neighborhood, it is going through, there's two new developments. One when you guys just recently approved the Sugar Creek development that's cutting right through, and then there's the school right there. And I think pushing that further west can help alleviate, as Tom said, those in and outs, so we can have a true bypass that goes around town rather than through neighborhoods that we have to have crosswalks with kids and pedestrians and bikes and all those things. And we want to, encourage that downtown, but on the bypass, we really just want to get cars going and get them out of here. And I think looking at an alternate route for that further west might be a good option, and something we should look at. So, thanks.
Thank you. This is your last chance, I guess, if anybody wants to come up to the mic. All right, we'll bring it back to the council. Darren and Paul, would you like to answer or comment on any of the public comment?
I wonder if there's any specific items. We took some pretty decent notes. If there's specific items, we can address those items, or.
So I guess I have a question, because obviously now in this existing plan, you've paired it with the 2015 plan. If a new plan is created in the next year or two, I'm assuming you would go in and update those maps and update the intersection of those plans?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We would use it as we would do an update or amendment to the plan to adopt that new bike and ped plan.
And maybe there were a couple of questions on the Western Bypass route. There is no set route right now. We are actually cooperating with UDOT on a study to look at that and look at, trying to establish a route so then you can start corridor preservation. This is probably a road that's 20 years down the road or something. But again, we want to start preserving corridor now, but there is no defined route right now. They're just looking at it, and there will be public input process. So I think your comments are valid. We need to look at that carefully, and that is what's happening right now.
Does a lot of that happen with CMPO?
Yeah.
The study's happening with the CMPO. UDOT and the CMPO are reading it.
Okay.
And that's exactly, as the comments mentioned, what they're looking at is where is the right location. The idea was, came up with it, I don't know when, 10, 20 years ago, and it got the name, the Western Arterial Bypass, and there was a line on the map all the way from, would that be Young Ward to Smithfield or Preston almost? And so now they're actually right in the middle of that study, and it went all the way from the perceived location, as was mentioned, 19 to 1400 West, And they're looking all the way to 3.
It's like 3,000 or 4,000.
Yeah, saying if we go this far, what are the impacts? Does it get used more or less in neighborhoods? This far, this far. They looked at about 6 different incremental, and that study's being developed. On that comment, this came up in Planning Commission when the master plan went. And per the Planning Commission's concerns and guidance, Darren made an edit to the plan saying when this western bypass, whether there's a deadline or it moves forward for funding or something like that, they need to consult the most current study, which is currently underway, to determine the actual location for that. We made reference to those plans saying, hey, don't just trust the previous ideas, but look at these plans which are being developed now and the most current plan. Because they had a similar concern and thought on that. Is that fair?
Yeah. I think one of the interesting topics, there's a question about pollution, and we had a little bit of information yesterday from the CMPO, Jeff Gilbert. He talked about how when they do their traffic demand model, which is the basis of this transportation master plan, they have to go through the EPA model for air quality. And so what that EPA model does, it says, okay, with the projected number of vehicles that are coming on the road, what items are in place to reduce that those emissions to an attainable level, and that level is dictated by the EPA. And they've been able to show, and that's what we talked about yesterday, because this is even the most recent plan that they're looking at. They were able to show that we're still within attainment with the projected growth that we expect to see in the next 35 years. So that was, I know Mayor Daines was there as well as Councilmember Jensen.
I mean, at a certain, again, as the vehicles get better and cleaner, that helps, clean up the air. At a certain point, I think it did show that just the sheer volume, then starts to raise concerns again. And I don't remember what that tipping point was. It was a ways out, but again, they do have to run everything through that EPA model. We are in a maintenance area, sort of, in terms of air quality.
I'll maybe comment on just one more. I think it was kind of more of a side note, but we didn't mean to suggest that sidewalks and bike lanes were equivalent, or the sidewalk was a bike alignment. We were addressing all modes of alternate transportation, including pedestrian, bicycle, transit, and so that's why sidewalks were mentioned. So I apologize. We were trying to say a sidewalk is a bike lane. So anyway.
And I know Ms. Schultz, she talked a lot about using other factors rather than just levels of service to influence decisions. And to speak to that a little bit, there's some. She actually provided a number of studies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys received
a whole spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's a little bit long, and we perused a number of those. I won't say that we got through all of them, but there's some good federal highway discussions on that where different municipalities have looked at incorporating other factors into the analysis. And actually, as I looked at the travel demand model that the CMPO runs, again, the basis of our study, they actually talk about not just using levels of service, they actually talk about using some of these other factors to help generate that model and help make that make those assumptions of what the projected growth is going to be and how traffic is going to move in the area. And so I feel like the things that some of the projects that were referenced in those FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration memos, it was all things that were, I guess, front line. These are ideas that haven't been vetted, and they're municipalities that are trying new things to try to make things better. And so there wasn't a whole lot of conclusive evidence of, hey, we need to do this, or directive of, hey, you need to do that. But it's more of the idea of, hey, let's start thinking about some of these broader topics and bringing those together so that we make a good plan. And it was interesting to me, and should have known this, but I didn't, but that travel demand model had started to take into account those other items. I feel like we're headed in that positive direction.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mark, do you have any comments or questions?
No, when I was able to visit with Paul and Darren, I think most of my questions and concerns were addressed, so thank you.
You ready?
Tom, earlier you made the comment that you wanted to downgrade one of those. Can you specify? I don't know if that was...
Yeah, it's on page 15. It talks about future functional classifications, and it would change 400 North from 1st West till 6th West and declassify it as a collector, and it's simply a residential street. And I guess I would add, and put a stop sign in there to reduce the traffic going through there. But Paul agreed to do that anyway. I'll check on it tomorrow morning.
So my question is, do we need to, in case that you're making a motion, do we need to make a motion for that? As part of the motion, do we need to specify?
Move to approve with the amendment. And I don't know if you have specific language that you want to propose, or if you've got enough, you could read back to the council.
Sure. I'll make the motion if you're ready for that.
Any last comments or questions from either of you?
I think overall the plan is very good. I know it's a lot of work and it's very important, and there's been a lot of good input. As far as I'm concerned, I've made my comments, but I would move that we accept this transportation plan. It's 2319 with the provision that we remove 4th North from 1st West to 6th West as a collector street, as it's designated.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All right, it's been moved and seconded with the amendment to downgrade to a neighborhood road.
Yes.
From 1st West to 6th West on 400 North. I'm gonna do a roll call. Mark?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Jeannie?
Aye.
Ernesto? Aye. Resolution 23-19 is approved with the amendment to downgrade that road.
Can I ask a question then? So as far as the timing of revising the bike ped plan, like, is that Mike's responsibility?
Well, we don't have any, we just passed our budget and we don't have money in the
So
budget.
it'd be
And that's, so we can maybe,
It's only 8 years old, we're not going to update it to at least after 10, but we've got other priorities we've got to do first, so maybe 2025-ish.
again, council, I mean, if you really want it sooner, we can maybe look at putting some money in the budget next year, to be 24. Maybe.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your input. Thank you, Paul and Darren. Next in our agenda, we have our workshop items. So that was the last action item. Next, we have workshop items. First up, we have Resolution 23-29.
While Dave gets set up, I'll just give a little introduction. We do these cost of service analysis every 3 to 5 years, hopefully. Of course, that could change as needed, but we look at all our costs from manpower to equipment to the cost of electricity, and then we look at our revenues and are we making enough to pay for the service that we provide. And since I've been here over 10 years, we haven't really done a rate increase because costs have remained low. But we've talked about the pressures on the power industry these days with everything. And those costs have risen dramatically in the last year and look to continue to be that way. So Davis, we hired him, the last time we did a cost of service analysis, he was bid on this last one, we selected him again, and he's gonna go through his results and talk about kind of what he found.
Mark, thanks, Mark. So, I was given a request to try to keep this short. So what I've done is a fair amount of material that if I go through all of it, it will not be short. So I'm going to say it's available to refer to relative to questions, and I can kind of give a summary of what it is that I'm recommending. So essentially, I'm recommending a couple of things. One is a series of annual 2% increases in electric rates. So it's a series of, 2% this year and a 2% next year and so on, in order to shore up the finances of the electric utility. And I've got some specific recommendations relative to how that is accomplished. Also, as part of your rate, you've got a supply cost adjustment where on people's bills it automatically adjusts every month depending upon what the cost of wholesale power is. And quite frankly, it kind of saved you last fall and early into this year when prices really spiked in the region. I've got other Utah municipal clients who don't have or didn't have those kinds of clauses, and they burned through a whole bunch of cash and then had to do very sizable rate increases in order to replenish cash. Now, relative to how we got to the 2% rate increases, I mean, you've got some fairly significant capital improvements that are coming up within the utility. There's some significant ones early, and we've got an assumption that about half of them will be bonded for with new debt, but the other half will come out of your cash reserves. So we'll be spending down cash reserves a fair amount, and so the 2% is relative to building those cash reserves back up to sort of a reasonable level. I will say that 2% rate increases is really, really, really at the low end of the rate increases I've been doing for the last year. So I think, part of that is because of your supply cost adjustment and how that really helped you, and I think otherwise, it's just overall, how the utility is run. So with that, maybe I can have questions, and then if there's specific questions, I've got materials that I could refer to if necessary.
Very nice.
He likes that. He likes it when it's really short.
I'm not really good at short, actually, so that was an effort.
Yeah, he was really excited.
Dave can get into the weeds, and I like it, but.
So, one of the questions when I looked over the different charts that I had was, how do you determine what the reserve should be for the utility?
Sure.
Rich gives us a guidance on what the reserve should be, and it's 42% of something.
42% of budget revenue.
Budgeted revenue, okay.
And why, what is the philosophy behind that number?
It is trying to have adequate reserves.
When I break stuff, it costs millions instead of thousands.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We often say everything the light department does is followed by 6 zeros. And we're not joking. It's replacing, how many transformers do we have? Over $1 million.
Every substation has at least one, and we have 10 substations. Some of them have 2.
$10 million in just.
Well, those are more like 3 million each.
Now.
Rich, how do you arrive at that number? You have this little formula, but how did you arrive at that formula?
It was recommendations from the GFOA, and we looked at each fund and analyzed the risk associated with each fund. With our electric department, there is a significant amount of risk. I know some of the municipalities are referring to that did not have the surcharge in place, and they burned through millions of dollars. In 2002, Logan City had no cash left in our electric fund.
Because of Enron.
Because of Enron.
And we did not have a surcharge.
In addition, we had no other cash around the city. I think we had $2 million of cash total. That doesn't even meet payroll. That was 2002. Now we have about 200 million in reserves. Each fund has adequate reserves, and in the electric fund, I think we have 30 million in reserves, roughly. I think we may have dropped down to like 28 million. But everything we do in the electric fund is followed by 6 zeros. So if we have to replace a transformer, not only is it out 2.5 years or 2 years to get, but the amount we have to expend is extremely significant. So it was based on a GFOA recommendation. Also, it's based on the number of months of revenue in just having that number of months in revenue. And I can't remember, 42%, I don't know if that's, I have to figure it out, it's less than 6, it's 5 months, something like that.
Yeah.
GFO stands for what? Oh, Government Finance Officers Association. And they gave general recommendations. And so if you remember, during the budget process, we adopted those reserve policies. We changed the general fund up from 24% up to 30%. And then we adjusted a few of the others. We left electric at the same at 42%. We can adjust those periodically. However, I'm pretty comfortable with the 42%. I'm not sure how comfortable I am going too much lower than that. But along with that policy, what we said is we can drop below that 42% targeted reserve as long as we have a plan in place to replenish those reserves. That's what the 2% rate increase per year over several years does for us. And he's got a slide that kind of shows what it drops down to and then how it builds back up.
This is what the reserves look like with the proposed rate increases. So you can see we're getting, we get down to, basically 20%. But then we're building it up over time. And what we set was a $20 million goal for here, just with the idea of getting back to the 42%. So we're not leaping back there, but we're getting there sort of slowly but surely.
Okay.
And you can see 11 million when each transformer is 3 million. That's not a lot of money. I know, it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money.
Right.
So that, I'm assuming, assumes a projection of where the rates, the market price would be.
Yeah, now I'm sort of interrupting you because the supply cost adjustment, right, we have an estimate of what market prices will be for power, which then translates into a certain amount of dollars flowing through that adjustment clause. But if those rates, if the market changes up or down, people's bills then automatically go up or down. So really the 2% increases aren't about that necessarily. They're much more about your local expenses. Your local expenses, labor, materials have skyrocketed in price. And so it's a lot more about really the local operation, because that supply cost adjustment is all about keeping you even with what may happen in the market, which quite frankly nobody can predict.
It's part of this problem because greater volatility is in the market because of.
Last year you had essentially a quadruple contingency problem. So one was you had the drought, which then all of the reservoirs were way down, so the hydro power was not generating as much energy as it normally was. You had coal plants in the region who were having difficulty getting rail deliveries of coal, so they were not generating as much energy as normal.
And that has not alleviated.
Yes. You had a major gas line, natural gas line that was disrupted, which caused for natural gas plants for the price to go way up for gas, which drove up market prices. And then you had a late summer, early fall heat wave, kind of like today.
Only in September.
But in September, which then, there's generally a big shift of what happens relative to power supply from August to September as we move from summer to fall, but summer hung around. And so all four of those things in combination drove market prices to really unseen levels.
And we also had wind and solar things that didn't come online when we thought they were going to come on too, resulting in.
We did. In addition to these pressures, generation overall in the Western grid is diminishing.
other than renewables, but renewables are only intermittent. So this pushes, all these things push us into the market, which is becoming more scarce. Everybody's getting pushed into the market, which drives prices up.
As we increase consumption.
And it's, right, it's not just Logan, it's.
Yeah, I mean, everyone.
Yeah.
So just clarifying the rate increase though, it's a 2-cent initial increase.
Oh, wait. David
and I have
okay, all right, all right. It's a 2% rate increase. The 2 cent is not a rate increase. That's an adjustment in the calculation of the supply cost adjustment, which does not change anybody's bill. Nobody's bill changes because of that.
But the rate that we're going to adopt, the rate goes up by 2 cents.
All right, no.
20%.
We're no. All right, here's my explanation of that. Okay, I'm going to show you.
We've had this discussion.
Right. Yeah. All right, I'm going to show you your residential rate here. Okay, so your residential rate right now is a $5 customer charge and these 3 energy charges. Now, what you're referring to is that these rates look like they go up by 2 cents.
And they do. But
they're only part of the rate. There's another part of the rate that goes down by 2 cents. And that's the supply cost adjustment.
Or surcharges.
So let me, I've got an example right here, and this is important, okay?
it does, but I guess what I'm trying to highlight is when they see the rate increase and they compare the prior rate to the current rate, there's a 20% increase in the rate. Then we're going to do 2% per year after that.
Right, but see, that is giving people the wrong impression. This is what happens. No, I'm sorry, but this is really important, okay?
I know, I feel it, I know exactly what you're trying to say, but what I'm trying to, just so people say you're lying to us, here's what we're adopting. No, we're not. The surcharge was part of it. That will go away. The rate will be adjusted by this amount.
Or it will diminish by 2 cents.
We hope.
No, it will. Here's the calculation, current and revised. The bill goes from $53 to $53, okay? So after 40 years of doing rates, that is not a rate increase, okay? It's a rate shift.
Sure.
Oh, no, I'm going to demand the opportunity to explain this.
I totally get it.
But you're not giving me a chance to explain it for these people. All right, you get it, I want to explain it for them, okay? So here's what happens, all right? See that surcharge base? All right, if wholesale power cost is 8 cents, you see the third line? In the current rate, the surcharge base is 5 cents. So what happens is you add 3 cents in the bill because of the difference between 8 and 5. All right? So the bill has got the energy charge, which in this case I'm saying is 9 cents, plus the 3 cent surcharge. So the total is 12 cents. All right? With the new rate, okay, part of the rate goes from 9 to 11. It goes up by 2. But the surcharge goes from 3 to 1.
Sure.
And so it's still 12 cents. Your rate has 3 parts. You have a customer charge, you have the consumption charges, and you have the surcharge. The surcharge is part of your rate.
The surcharge is a separate rate.
Yes, but it's part of the rates.
Yes.
So one goes up by 2, the other goes down by 2. The net impact on a person's bill is 0.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
But I feel it every day, so I'm trying to make sure the customer understands what they're going to
Because the
see.
surcharge came in on a different bill than their month, like that wasn't billed every month, that was billed, right?
But you're right, it's not going to go up by 20%. However, the rate itself that we adopt, if you hold it side by side, you're going to see a 20% increase. That's just what I want to make sure everybody was aware of.
If you go back 2 years, last year, it's the same, right? Because the surcharge, they paid this surcharge for a year.
I just mean rate 6, is that what it is?
Well,
all of them.
let me make my point in another way. All right, once we make that change and we're here, you notice how these bottom 3 numbers don't change all the way forward? So 11 is 11, and then it's 11, and then it's 11, and then it's 11. You still have a rate increase. You know why? Because the customer charge goes from $5 to $6.50 to $8 to $9.50 to $11. Now, if somebody just looks at your energy rates, they're gonna say, no rate increase. But there is. It's $1.50 a year, because the customer charge is also part of the rate. And my point is that the surcharge is also part of the rate, because if I put the surcharge in here, it's 3 cents here, but it's only 1 cent here. So if I did the effective rate, adding them together, it'd be 12 and 12 and 12 and 12 and 12 and 12. And it'd be, 13.5 all the way across. And then it would be 13, so the effective energy rates do not change. One portion goes up by 20%, but one portion goes down by, 67%. Okay? So please don't say 20% rate increase, because it simply just isn't.
So for those that, like me, that maybe got a little confused by everything that was just said,
I don't know how.
will the average customer see a change in their bill
No.
when something like this is implemented?
Yes. Let me answer how they'll see the change on their bill. They will see it it'll be in a little different place. Things will shift just a little bit on their bill.
But will the bill,
Exactly, will the amount change?
May I? So a year ago, before we had the surcharge as part of the rate, but we didn't implement it. I told, mostly for the benefit of commercial and industrial customers, I'm going to give you until the end of our fiscal year, I'm going to eat it. And I did. It came out of reserves to cover it. But I said, starting July 1st in 2022, we will begin implementing the surcharge, which has been part of the rate since 2004 or something. So that day came, we implemented the surcharge, which affected all customers on a per kilowatt hour basis. So through July 2022 till now, they have seen more money coming out of their pocket to pay for their electric bill. However, the surcharge has been part of the rate for over a decade. What Dave is saying is he's just shifting that surcharge money into the base electric rate. The surcharge is still there, but we shouldn't have to hit it as hard or as often to cover our wholesale rates.
No matter what wholesale costs are, the surcharge will always be 2 cents less than it would have been. Because we're comparing it now to 7 cents instead of 5. So if power costs are 7 cents, now the surcharge would be 0 instead of 2 cents. Because under the old way, it was 7 compared to 5, you had a 2 cent adder. Now if it's 7 cents, the adder is 0. So 2 cents moves from that into the published rate. But actually the only bill increase, I'll use the word bill increase if you like, that people are going to see is this change in the customer charge. So literally everybody will see $1.50 increase in residential bills each month as we go forward. That's where the true bill increase is.
Unless you use more electricity.
Well, yes. If you double your usage, your bill will more or less double, yes.
And just to clarify, the 150 increase that you mentioned is every year,
No,
right?
every month.
Every month. Well, each year, the monthly charge goes up by $1.50.
So for
Per month.
we call it customer charge, but it's actually a per meter charge.
So still
And
$6.50 every month.
that is each month. It's a base charge.
But the increase is annual.
Yeah.
So annually, it'll
Well, if you look here, the first year it goes from $5 to $6.50. That's $1.50 per month.
Yeah.
Yes. The second year it goes up $1.50 again per month.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's a monthly charge.
So the increase happens once a year.
Yes.
You will pay $1.50 more every month for 1 year, then the next year, $1.50 more every month for
Yes.
that year.
Show them the slide that compares us to other municipalities.
So that we end up with $30 million in reserves over time.
Well, and there's more going on than just the residential $1.50 per month.
That's
Yeah.
30.
I believe the resolution redlines all the rates, how all the rates are affected.
Because these other rates obviously change as well. It's not just on residential customers. all customers' bills are gonna be, you know, increasing in different ways. There is, so this is a monthly bill comparison at 3 different levels on a residential basis. So 400 kilowatt hours is a relatively small customer. 1,000 is sort of an average summer customer. 2,000 is a pretty good sized residential customer. So you can see between, and when I say Logan proposed, this is just the first year. So you can see at all usages, every one of those goes up by $1.50. Because that's the increase in the monthly customer charge. Now you can see Morgan is slightly higher across the board. Brigham, which just had to do a sizable increase to prepare from previous financial ills.
They did not have a surcharge.
Theirs is a fair amount higher, especially up here at the bigger consumption. Lehigh is a bit less. And Rocky Mountain Power, which their rates still are relatively low. I'm anticipating a rate case from them. They're actually doing one in Idaho, and it's a double-digit increase is what they're asking for. And most people I'm talking to here are expecting that they'll be filing a Utah rate increase soon as well.
Yeah, because one of my questions was, how do we defend our rate being higher than Rocky Mountain Power, which you know, provides power to 90% of the valley?
One of the things that, what's interesting is you used to be considerably lower than them, but you had more exposure to the market than they did, and you benefited greatly from what were really low markets for quite some time. But then, you know, the problem with markets, it's kind of like any market. Sometimes it moves on you, and what happened was it moved on you. Now you're doing some things to try to repair that, to take away some of your market risk. If you look at it in totality, your comparison to Rocky Mountain Power over probably the last 10 years, you still come out ahead because you were lower. It just so happens that now, you know, you as well as many other Utah municipals ended up on the wrong side of the market, which kind of happens eventually.
Well, and if you anticipate they're going to have a rate increase, then we may be in the same ballpark when they're done.
And then, of course, it'll depend upon what the state commission allows them to do.
Thank you. Any questions?
Rich confused us all enough.
Don't, on this topic, don't listen to him.
Just look over here.
On this topic, please don't listen to him.
Whoa!
Little standoff here.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I guess in 2 weeks we get to revisit this again. So if we have any questions in between, Mark?
Feel free.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have item B, code amendment, ordinance 23-22, presented by Mike DeSimone.
Sorry, somebody changed my file on me.
We're not discussing a rate change, right?
Pardon me?
We're not discussing a rate change with you.
No, I can't top the rate change discussion. I will just jump back to the comment about the bike ped plan. You know, it's only, we adopted it in 2015, still relatively new, and it's interesting to look at what we had in place prior to that in terms of what's on the ground versus what we have now. And so we've made pretty good strides in terms of implementing the plan, and so it's just a constant project to work with Public Works to implement little elements as we can go, as well as parks. So, to say we got to update it is probably a little premature. We got to actually evaluate where we're at with it in terms of what we've got on the ground versus what we're lacking and what we're deficient. So when I say we shouldn't really do it until 2025, I'm really looking at from my own selfish perspective. We've got to do our general plan first, get that done. We've been setting aside money for that. That's going to be a lengthy, involved process, and then we can delve into other projects as needed. So.
But doing an evaluation of, like you said, what was proposed versus where we're at is a good idea.
Yeah. So. Okay, so we are workshopping ordinance 23-22. This is the Plan Development Overlay Zone. This is not the Cache Valley Marketplace project, so if people are here thinking they're going to hear that, that's not what this is. This is the proposed amendment to the Land Development Code, sets up 1727, and it establishes the enabling legislation for us to go forward with the plan development type of project. So the Cache Valley Marketplace is pushing us along. It's what really initiated us to do this language. And it's the cart's before the horse in some respects, but it's still not. So this is just, it's following in the process.
Well, plus I think also we had been discussing this long before the marketplace in terms of some other projects that we had wished would have had the opportunity for us to be a bit more creative with what was going to be on the ground.
Yeah, so it's from a timing perspective, it's just, it seems a little weird or wonky in terms of how things are going to lay out. But you will get certain elements of the marketplace, the overlay zone, and then the code amendment your next meeting to workshop that and have a decision in 2 weeks after that. But the design review permit and the subject have already been decided on by Planning Commission.
Right.
And just to clarify, we are discussing later on within the redevelopment agency, we are discussing the project area for the community reinvestment for the mall project.
Cache Valley Marketplace, right?
Cache Valley.
And that's the old RDA, now it's the CRPA designation. Okay, so I'm just going to breeze through this. We've already talked about this a few times, but this language, the reason we're doing this language is that it provides some flexibility in how we apply the city zoning and development regulations. Hopefully it provides for well-planned development, encourages a mixture of uses, innovation in terms of design, and really the idea is to get at projects that don't really quite fit into that zoning box. It applies to commercial, residential, mixed-use projects. It's discretionary by both the PC and the city council. Hopefully it encourages a greater transparency in the overall review process, and we're not doing like a deed restriction kind of at the last minute, but it actually lays all those things out up front so people can have the ability to participate in that. The one important thing is we don't want to see this used as a tool where somebody doesn't want to like one standard where they could comply with zoning. We don't see this used as a way to kind of get around existing zoning. Minimum lot size is 3 acres. We set that as kind of the base. The Planning Commission talked about that. There's not a perfect number, but this seemed to be okay. And we added some language that allowed for discretion if there's a site that's smaller that has some unique characteristics that we could use this overlay zone on. So the approach is they're going to require a rezone to establish the overlay zone. It's going to require a code amendment. And within the code, we're going to codify all the specific nuances to a plan development that are above and beyond or outside that zoning box. So the underlying zoning will still apply, but this is where we're going to outline specifically those areas where we said, in this case, the zoning doesn't apply. And then they will also have to get a design review permit, which is basically their development plans, subdivision permits, etc. So the concept plan review is part of this whole process. You all have looked at the concept plan for Cache Valley Marketplace. It's really important to remember this is just at this level, it's very tentative. It's here's my idea, I'm going to put a little time and energy into it. What do you guys think? And really what we're looking for is feedback from the Planning Commission, from the council, from city staff, and then really ask the question, does it make sense? Are the boundaries accurate? Are the uses appropriate? Development plans seem to make sense, location, context, things like that. What we really want to avoid is setting up another level of public hearing because there's really nothing to hear. There's an idea. They're trying to vet the idea so it's ripe enough to go back into the process as a formal project. But really, there's nothing that's binding from a concept plan. We did add some language in this code version that gives the public distribution concept plans. So we'll distribute to neighborhood councils, and we do that through our typical distribution list through my office. We have an email distribution list that Aaron Smith maintains, but the mayor started that whole process where folks can sign up to get notification from the city for either a neighborhood or citywide. So we'll send it out that way, and then we'll also post it City Hall, social media, on our website. But again, this isn't a public hearing. This is just a chance to actually have a discussion about a proposal that's on the table, as opposed to, what do you think? Give us your input. That people can send in comments. They can be incorporated. We can add those or include those to the applicant. We don't want to set up another public hearing. Does that seem reasonable? Make sense? Once they've gone through that process, we'll require a formal application. So that's our track to review process. It'll go through the typical processes where Planning Commission will look at it, then elements will come to you for approval. The PC is the final land use authority on design review permits, subdivision permits. They are a recommending body to this group on rezone code amendments. Then you guys this group is a final decision authority on rezone and code amendments. So you don't really see the project as it's laid out, but you will see the project because it's built into that code amendment for that language. So you'll see elements of it. So procedural approval criteria. The whole process is discretionary. It gives the city more latitude to make changes, to push changes, because it's going to get into a little bit of negotiation. So in the case of like the marketplace, they wanted some bigger signs. We said, well, you can get a lot of signs on this property because of the size of it. We'll give you a little bit bigger sign, but we'll reduce the number of signs. So in terms of, you can negotiate on certain elements of the project. We also want to look at making sure that the project is consistent with the general plan, compatible with the neighboring areas, neighborhoods. And then also the base zone and your adopted regulations will govern unless specifically waived by the PD. So anything that happens on an approved plan development site is tied back to that original approval. So somebody may get a plan development approved, they may turn around and sell it. The new person has to build or develop according to the plan that was approved. If not, they go back into the entire process. So we also want to make sure that any kind of substantial changes or amendments go back through the review process, because we all agree to a certain level of development, a certain level of intensity. Some minor changes, I think we should have administrative review or approval over. So, if somebody says they're going to build a Hyatt, instead now it's a Marriott, room count may change, but those things we can do at administrative level. And the planned development template for basically code amendment, we're trying to cover these different elements: purpose, applicability, uses, things that are approved. And you will see this come through next week with the Marketplace project. And with that, we have to answer your questions.
So this came through planning with unanimous, correct?
That's correct.
Did they have any public comment received on it?
No. And the only recommendation to this group was to add in some kind of public notification element to that concept plan.
Which you outlined in that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It seems to make a lot of sense. Is this a model used by many cities, some cities, a city?
Yeah, there's a bunch of cities use this. I would say I had the original thought, but I just cheated and stole from, Lehigh. And
like everybody else does.
Yeah, you just look around and see what makes sense. You kind of grab concepts, put it together. So yeah, there's a bunch of cities that use it in Utah and elsewhere.
It kind of evolved, it seems, from some of the earlier projects that we looked at where we needed something modified from the standard.
We had a PD approach probably 13 or 14 years ago, but we did away with it when we adopted the latest land development code back in 2011. And one of the reasons why we got away from it was we ended up with a lot of substandard subdivisions and projects. So you all have heard requests to take over a private road that's substandard because now it's failing. Well, those are the result of the PD that happened years ago. That just, you want a narrow street, well, we don't want to build to the city specs, let us do what we want to do, but oh, by the way, we're going to ask you to take it 10 years. So we're trying to get away from that approach. We still want them to comply with city specifications for infrastructure.
I have a special favor to ask.
Uh-oh.
Could you, for the next time when this becomes an action item, could you create a slide with a diagram that shows how the process is being changed?
Sure.
Thank you.
So the request to utilize the overlay zone comes from the person who has the project idea.
He's as good as I've seen.
It's not the city saying you should use the overlay, it's.
Right. We hope there's discussion up front about options and opportunities. So when Sugar Creek was coming through the early stages and talking to staff, had we had this in place, we could have suggested this would be a good avenue for you to pursue because it allows for that broader discussion about lot sizes, housing types, densities, things like that.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Next, we have a workshop item, ordinance 23-24, vacation of sewer line easement.
Paul, you just have more vacations than any other staff member.
I've had way more this year than the previous 5 as well.
He has 3 now
It's
tonight.
been fantastic. So this is, am I on the right one? Yeah, okay. A sewer line easement vacation. This is located in the Logan Walmart subdivision, which would be the South Walmart. Give you a point of reference, Highway 89, Highway 101, going south, and we know where Walmart is. This is an existing sewer line easement that when they did their subdivision, their sewer goes out through that. And if you remember the old LeGrand Street that used to go through here, this is existing LeGrand, and it came at an angle up here and tied in. It was kind of a small road. This sewer line was in that as part of their subdivision. When they built, they had to relocate that sewer line around their building to there. And so that's why there's a public sewer through their property. It was existing and they worked with it. This is on their original plat, that sewer line, its location, and the easement that was dedicated on their property to maintain that sewer. They are building, we go back to here, in this location, they are building a fuel center, a fueling location. And so with that, they would like to vacate this portion in red of that sewer easement and dedicate this sewer easement and relocate the sewer line to make it whole, if you will. The new sewer line easement would be dedicated and recorded in conjunction with this vacation. Again, 2 separate processes being done at the same time.
So they have to put in a whole new sewer line? Because there is a sewer line in there, right?
Correct, and that would be in conflict with the new fueling center. So they would reconstruct or move that sewer line, so they'd have to rebuild it, yes. And they're doing that as part of their fuel center construction.
And the cost is on them to do that.
Yeah, it's all part of their development, their cost, yes.
Are there some wetlands right around that area?
The back side.
Yes, right here, pretty much.
Is that right
If I
there?
go back, right here, and
Oh,
right
yeah.
here, and right here. Correct. And it's all contained, everything they're doing is within their asphalt parking lot. I think that was my last slide. It was.
So they won't be impacting the wetland area by moving the sewer line, will they?
No, they cannot.
So it'll still be within their paved area?
Correct.
Okay.
Um,
Seems like they could move the fuel center.
It would be right here. If I remember right, their first desire was to have it over here, and I can't remember or don't know why they chose to move it.
They couldn't have another entry on Highway 89.
Correct.
So are they going to add superchargers as well as fuel stations? That would be awesome.
I have no idea.
One thing we're working on getting a grant for is adding a couple of the fast chargers in the Senate block parking lot. So we're putting conduit in to do it, and if we get them, we'll just a little aside, Senate block and behind the plaza.
Next application?
You bet. What's next?
Ordinance 23-25.
It's public utility easement.
Okay. This is located at the new Logan City Fire Station, which is formerly the Wilkes 200 North subdivision. This would be the location, City Hall, in the top left of the picture, 200 North. I'm sure you're familiar with the new fire station location on 100 East and 200 North. When the city acquired these multiple parcels and worked to combine them into one parcel to build the fire station on, there were existing utility easements around those parcels of land. So to build there, we need to vacate those. Any existing utilities within them have been relocated or are being relocated.
This seems a little, the cart's after the horse here, because the building's already up.
It does. Darren has done a good job of trying to clean a few things up.
Okay, that's good.
If I'm going to answer that question. This would be the new utility easement that is part of the fire station and part of that boundary line adjustment through that area to make sure all that any existing utility easements outside here are still continuous. That's that one.
Okay.
Thank you. The last vacation?
And number 3.
It's the best vacation of all.
This is located within the Willow Lakes subdivision, a vacation of several rights of way. Just an area map. I think you're familiar with where the Willow Lakes subdivision is. 1000 West or SR 252 and 1100 South Logan River to get you oriented.
Is it still underwater?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Is it still underwater?
Part of it.
Parts of it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Through the subdivision process, there were several existing rights of way that were identified. Truthfully, they were not identified by Logan City on any of our current maps or right-of-way mapping. The developer and their engineer located, there's many of them, but an original plat, an old pioneer plat that showed these as rights of way. I think there may be some ambiguity, or there could be a continued investigation into whether or not they are actual rights of way or just possible future rights of way on that original plat map. The developer made application to get rid of, make sure they're vacated so there is no question whether or not they're there or not. These would be bounded by the Logan River on the south and west. There's no plan to continue them through that area, especially with the now existing conservation easement.
But what happens to, don't they have to have dedicated easements for their development?
So, as part of their subdivision process, good question. All of the roads within the Willow Lake subdivision would be dedicated as public rights of way, making them accessible and continuous for the residents there and those outside as well. They've met the requirements for planning commission for connection. I guess that, if that answers your question, these are the future rights of way. They're not.
So they don't have rights of way like everybody else between lots and all that stuff? I mean, the ones we looked at.
Are you referring to utility easements?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is a right-of-way vacation.
Oh, okay.
All of the lots have recorded public utility easements throughout, just like in standard subdivision.
Okay.
We're not
I'm
talking
sorry,
utility
I'm
easements, sorry.
My brain was not working.
I'm with you
Sorry.
now. Yeah, this is purely rights-of-way, not easements.
So all of the roads within the subdivision will be public roads?
Correct.
And
And they'll be
then we go
dedicated to city standard, like,
So will we have to maintain them and we will have to plow them and all that other stuff? Was that part of the original project? I thought they were going to do private roads.
not to my knowledge.
Okay, Mike's left.
I don't think so.
So I don't know the answer.
No, all the roads are being built to city cross-section standards, everything. In addition to, within the city, I know the developers, if there are any corrections, there's some right-of-way to be dedicated that's within the county also to make sure this connectivity is maintained. And we would anticipate in the future that would be annexed into Logan. See, it's part of our annexation area. But it's a separate process, obviously, where it's in the county now.
Right, because they have to build a road.
Correct. And that's this piece right here that you're seeing.
Yeah.
To answer the question you haven't asked yet, Jeannie,
Yes.
I did look at comparison of vacation versus dedication. You're just shy of 10,000 lineal feet of dedicated right-of-way. Vacated right-of-way. And you're within about 4 to 5% of being one-to-one, if that makes sense.
So what's being vacated and what's being set aside are within 4% of each other.
It's, yeah.
45% of one-to-one. Right. So I don't know what that means.
So if let's phrase that, I don't have an accurate map to measure. I went off the PDF, but measuring the vacated versus the right-of-way is almost the same lineal feet of roadway.
Okay. So if it was 10,000 feet, it'll just be down 40 feet less?
It's about 500 feet, based on my measurement. That should be 5% if I'm doing that correct. I don't know. 10% of 10,000 would be 1,000. Half of that would be 500 or 5%. I tried to look at that to make sure. I don't think there's any connectivity that's being lost or forfeited by the city based on the geography and conservation easement in the area.
So that would have been Herb's question.
Yeah, which doesn't matter.
Are there any questions that I can answer?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last workshop item.
Enjoy your next real vacation.
Last workshop item, Resolution 23-30, presented by Richard, budget adjustments.
Thank you. Okay, just to clarify from the electric guy, he and I are saying the same thing. He's looking at it from the aggregate, which most customers will appreciate. I look at it from the detail, which a few customers will scrutinize. Saying the same thing.
Right, because the bill will look different.
The bill may look different, and the detail is definitely different. But at the end of the day, it's mostly the same. Does that make sense? Okay. 11 budget items consider all these grants. I won't go into each one unless you have questions, but essentially there's 630,000-ish of RAPS awards that we've received, allocated towards various projects, and then there's a $750,000 grant we received from the state for the, what are we calling that park?
Outdoor recreation complex.
Outdoor recreation complex, and then a couple other small ones. And that covers, again, we don't budget for grants as part of our adopted budget. We bring those in separately as they're awarded.
Yep. It's a lot of grants.
That's
A lot of grants. We're gonna have a whole bunch more, we hope.
Yeah. I hope everything.
Now, I mean, kudos to our staff, because it takes a lot of extra time to write these grants.
Absolutely.
And, they wouldn't have to do it, but it just allows us to do a lot of other things and to leverage our dollars. A lot of them have to be matched, but again, we just can get a lot further with these grants, so.
We don't want to take them for granted.
Good. Well said.
And one benefit of bringing them in the way we do after the budget's adopted is we don't fund operational costs with grants. We don't fund ongoing operational. We don't even charge the de minimis overhead for the most part. The only thing, all we do is we use those for bricks and mortar directly for those programs it supports, which makes those dollars carry further. So that's just another reason why we just don't make them part of our original adopted budget.
Well, plus they're not for sure money, so you can't really put them in the budget.
They're really not.
Because then your budget could look really, really grand, and then all of a sudden it would look really, really bad.
Exactly. And there are big variations from year to year. It makes it not very comparable.
Yep. I did. Completely understand.
Anything you'd like to add?
No.
All right, thank you, Richard. Any other considerations for our regular city council meeting?
No. Do you have one?
Jeannie's like, Amy always has something. I don't.
Amy was there going. I didn't know if you were going to say something.
Mark, any other comments or considerations?
At the moment, no. I have some comments, but I'll save them for later.
You'll do what with them?
I'll save them for later.
Save them for later.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Excellent. All right, well, we'll go ahead and adjourn our city council meeting and reconvene for the redevelopment agency meeting. We only have one action item for tonight, and that is a public hearing for Resolution 23-28, which is to approve the 1400 North Main Community Reinvestment Project Area Plan. So I'm emphasizing that because we're not reviewing a concept. It's just the area plan that we are voting on tonight.
That's right. Thanks, Ernesto. Yeah, this is just one part of the process of creating that economic mechanism, if you will, to allow the project, which has been discussed in Planning Commission, and which you've seen too, to allow that to go forward. So this is not, budget specific, and as Ernesto said, it's not project specific. So again, tonight we're talking about the 1400 North Main Community Reinvestment Project Area Plan. And if you remember, in early June, we considered the agency board considered a survey resolution, which basically was, considering this boundary, which you see on the screen, and if in your minds it was suitable for redevelopment purposes, and that's part of, so by passing that night, you also authorized us as staff to create this draft project area plan to bring to you with the various elements proposed, some of the general concepts envisioned, so that you can consider, is this a good step to take in creating this project area plan. So in terms of geography, you can see at the top of that image is the Cache Valley Mall, so that's really the bulk of this project area. There is a node which extends southward to 1000 north along 200 east, which again is part of the project area.
So it's wrapping around Home Depot.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, if you see that little peninsula of, maybe that's the wrong word, but that skinny little connection point between the mall and the point southward, just immediately left of that skinny red line or that skinny segment between those two red lines is the Home Depot. Okay, project area selection. Why was this area appropriate, suitable for potential creation of a project area? There's some reasons listed there on the screen. It's underdeveloped. Buildings, some of them need reinvestment. Excuse me. The entire, The area is economically underperforming, particularly the Cache Valley Mall. It's high in vacancy rate, that sort of thing. All 3 anchors are gone. Another item that makes us suitable for a project area is it's a great location. It's a prime commercial residential area with proximity to a multitude of services. You've got the university close by, grocery, the hospital. It's just the key corners we all know. And a public-private partnership is emerging that really gives this momentum to move this process forward. Some of the plan elements, if you've looked through the document, those are just some highlights. Boundaries, which we've already touched on. Land uses. Land uses is I guess, morphing a little bit. Mike touched on that earlier with the plan development overlay to allow for some different uses in this project area than what the base zoning has. Population densities is also touched on in the plan, building intensities, as well as various development and design standards. Financial assistance is contemplated for the project area. And like I said, this is not the budget discussion tonight. That will come in the coming weeks. Go ahead.
But I was going to say, when we create these types of project areas, they all have this, right?
Correct.
They all have these ability, the ability for these types of financial assistance.
Yeah.
This isn't special.
That's correct.
Okay.
I mean, the means and the methods of that financial assistance might vary to a degree, but you're right. They presume, all these areas presume some type of financial assistance. And really the primary one is tax increment financing or property tax, new property tax that would be created by new development.
And this is a method that the state has created to allow for some more, to allow for development in an area that's being underutilized at the particular moment. We've done these in other locations throughout the city. We've done one in downtown.
Correct.
Had a different name,
right,
but it's the same concept. Is that correct?
That is correct. State law, I want to say about 40 years ago, created, basically the law for redevelopment in the state of Utah.
The shell, yeah.
Yeah, the names, some of the rules change obviously from year to year. The nomenclature changes a little bit from year to year. But in essence, it's to spur redevelopment that would, or economic development that would revitalize in some cases or enhance the economic environment of a community, or even the housing, which we expect to see, additions to housing and affordable housing in this particular project area.
And that's a state requirement that depending on the type of redevelopment, housing has to be an aspect of it.
Correct. If you are including retail as part of your, incentivized redevelopment, then you do have to have a housing component and even an affordable housing component too. So that is a recent, I want to say a couple of years ago, the state legislature passed what was House Bill 151, and so yes, housing's a big part of it.
Can you give an example of how one project may vary from one to another, as far as where some of the monies may come from for the assistance?
Yeah, great question. So typically speaking, in the project areas that the city has had, tax increment financing, which I mentioned before, is kind of a mainstay or something that's very common to all of our project areas that we've had in the past. You may, some of our project areas have had affordable housing set-aside requirements where we're obligated to, say, take 10% of new property tax revenue, put that on the shelf and save it for valuable affordable housing projects somewhere within the community. Other project areas that we've created in the past have not had that. So that's one difference. Permit and fee waivers, could be or could not be present in a project area. It just depends on really the projects that come to the table. You know, what are their specific needs? And sometimes that might just be strictly tax increment financing. Other times, you know, fee waivers, permit waivers, those kind of things can come into play. Or even existing affordable housing reserves. If they have a housing component, some of which may be affordable, you know, serving low to moderate income populations, then those reserves that the redevelopment agency may have on hand can be used for that purpose.
Thank you.
So financial assistance, really the basis for that is to help a developer or multiple developers with some of their costs that they are facing with a particular project. So some of the areas of reimbursed costs, I've listed them on the screen, would be demolition. It's well known at this point that you know, and we're not, again, diving into the specifics of the project tonight, but, you know, demolition of the Cache Valley Mall would be a significant item, obviously. New public infrastructure, perhaps some on-site upgrades, some landscaping enhancements, those kind of things. And I'm not just speaking specifically to the mall, but any future project that may come in the future within this boundary. You could have some land write-downs, you know, on the cost of land to make it, maybe it's not economically feasible for a development to go forward without some kind of assistance from the redevelopment agency to cover, you know, a land write-down. Okay, so summarizing here, the projected agency expenditures, and this was included in the plan, would over a 20-year time horizon would be roughly $13 million from the redevelopment agency, subject to interlocal agreements with the tax entities. Of course, Logan City being one of those, Cache County being another, and the Logan City School District being another. Public benefits, there's many. Investment into an area. That area is in need of a lot of investment. Again, just speaking of the mall itself, 3 anchors of left, the vacancy's high. New development, you know, going through the city's planning commission process and so forth, high quality design will be expected and will occur. Pedestrian enhancements will be made. Traffic circulation enhancements will also be are envisioned through this plan. Strengthening of a key commercial area, which I've noted before. Of course, there's various direct, indirect, and induced economic benefits, not just on site there for that particular project, but throughout the community. Anytime you have significant investment in your community, it's going to lead to more jobs, more income that will be, you know, spread throughout the community and reinvested in the community. The tax base will be significantly strengthened. We'll take a look at that in a moment. The increased affordable housing supply will also go up. We talked about HB 151 and the implications of that. We would see, and we expect to see, a significant increase in the number of affordable housing units. So lastly, I just wanted to point out the tax base impact. It is significant. So upon the expiration of the project area, which we would foresee a duration of 20 years, it would be estimated that taxing entities collectively would receive nearly $1 million more per year in their coffers. So, and that's significant. We've had, you know, specifically a conversation with Logan City School District, who came back to, you know, share this with the mayor and myself, just saying the RDA project areas, which, you know, the city ran for years and years, the South Main RDA, the downtown RDA, the Northwest RDA, which, you know, we've got an industrial park out there. Those all closed more or less simultaneously and added, just on the school districts in their coffers alone, over $1 million a year. So it makes a huge difference when they're, you know, trying to keep up with inflation and, you know, provide raises to retain staff and the multitude of responsibilities they have. It helps them significantly. So That would be what we would expect through the investment of that $13 million that upon the maturity of this project area, that the tax needs again would, realize about $1 million a year.
So that would be in today's dollars,
Correct.
the estimate based on today's dollars.
Yeah, I have not applied the time value of money to that, but yeah.
So in all probability, in 20 years, it'd be a lot more than that.
Yeah. So that's all I have for you tonight, unless you have questions. Public hearing too, so.
So this area, the red boundary, is just the RDA boundary?
Correct.
Okay.
It's
not the project.
CRPA.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, but it's not the project boundary,
It's a CRIPA.
it's a what?
It's a CRIPA.
Community
CRPA.
Reinvestment Project area.
And one reason we did a larger area than just the mall per se is, especially if you look down along, 10th North, I mean, there's kind of some substandard housing along there. I mean, would that ever need, again, some kind of a little bit of an incentive to redevelop? So we just wanted, because again, it's a pretty big deal to create one of these areas. So we just wanted to give ourselves some options down the road if there were developers that maybe were, if there was interest in, developing those areas going forward. Clearly, Home Depot is just fine. I mean, it doesn't need redevelopment, but so there could potentially be, we're just planning ahead in case other requests came in.
Yeah, because it's, once you set the boundary, you can't change the boundary. Once you create the CRPA, so you need to think through what areas within where you believe that projects might come in the future, because this is a 20-year time horizon for this boundary.
The $13 million comes from where?
13 million that we're covering tonight is the redevelopment agency. That's the source of that. However, where does that 13 million come from? That's the obvious question. So it comes from what we call tax increment, which is increases in property taxes paid on a particular parcel of property. So in other words, if you say value the mall, it's on the tax rolls, I think, at about $14.5 million, and you invest $200 million there, what does that do to the tax obligation of that property owner? It goes up significantly. So that increase in property tax through interlocal agreements with the tax entities, those revenues are then paid to the redevelopment agency for a certain time horizon, in this case 20 years, from which the RDA then has the ability to mitigate developer costs, pay for public infrastructure, or whatever is proposed in the budget, and that budget will be forthcoming August 1st, I believe.
So they have to you reinvest, basically.
Correct.
So you reinvest in a particular project or another project. So it gives you the opportunity to reinvest in other projects as well.
Right.
So that 13 million is not money in our pocket now, it's out of the future earnings from the tax increment.
That's correct.
From all of the taxing entities. It's not just the Logan portion of
Correct,
that.
assuming that they participate.
Right, so this project has to, again, be taken, once we get the budget and so on, it has to go to the school board for approval, the Cache County Council for approval, as well as your final approval. So.
Just for the project area?
But we don't have to get the project area approved by the taxing entities. It's the budget and those specific documents that we take for approval, and then once we have that approval, we create the specific development agreements.
Okay.
And the last simple question is, what is the period of time until the taxing entities receive the full amount? There's
20 years, assuming they agree to that. That's what the ask is. Again, they'll have to approve that.
Okay.
That's the request.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Mark, comments or questions before we open it up for public comment?
Mark's phone's ringing.
You went to sleep.
Okay. Are we okay? Good to open it up? All right. If you would like to comment on this specific item, our only item for the redevelopment agency, please come up to the mic and state your name and your place of residence. And just a reminder, this is about the project area plan, not necessarily the concept plan that has been floating around.
Dr. Gail Yost. I live in the Wilson neighborhood, but something like this is going to affect all of the city eventually. I have two questions. One, just recently we had that event center built and it's been doing really well. That's on 2nd East. And I'm wondering if that's also going to be considered as part of redevelopment. In other words, eventually is that going to be taken down after all the money that went into building it up and having the different events or different restaurants? Second question, as I read the plan, and I know it's a proposed plan, it talked about another large store, another large behemoth like Home Depot and Costco and Sam's Club and all those big box stores. And I'm just wondering if that's a really good idea, considering how many box stores we already have.
So Gail, can I interrupt you? That's really related to the design. That's not really related to the idea of doing this planned area. So
okay.
I can appreciate the concerns, but the conversation for this is really just about the boundaries for the RDA.
Well, I'm especially concerned about a new business that is within that jurisdiction of...
Nothing requires them to go away.
Okay.
So there are a lot of privately owned parcels within that in addition to the specific mall property.
Okay.
So again,
that's helpful right there.
There's nothing required.
Private properties. I just wanted to make sure that things that were recently done won't be undone, because we've enjoyed going there with friends, and it's just, it would be really sad for that investment to go away.
Nothing requires that to go away.
So I'll even tell you, so in section 7, there's a specific line item that says property owners will always have the option not to participate in redevelopment. So the creation of this area does not require or mandate anybody in that area to have to participate in redevelopment, nor does it say your building is going to come down.
Well, that's why I asked. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Joel Nelson. I'm the same resident, at least last time I checked, that came from North and 200 East. Thank you for being here tonight and being here for this extra time. I really appreciate it. And also the time for public comment. I was here with my wife Ashley, our little baby Freddie, and we have been long-term Logan residents. I've carried the majority of the Logan time. I've been in the Valley for over 40 years, but not from the Valley. I was born in Minnesota. And then here in Logan, I think a few that know me know a bit of my story, but I wanted to take just another quick minute and kind of pull a little bit of rank. It's not to be like mean or short or controversial. It's more like I'm just trying to get my engineering way of saying these are the factors that affect us, and this comes from a public citizen. So I got 2 degrees from Utah State, one being a master's. I'm working right now for Space Dynamics Laboratory, so I still have university connections, which then it extends to international connections. And through a lot of different things that we did here in Logan, we decided to stay in Logan by actually moving from Northwest Logan, Bridger neighborhood, to Adams neighborhood. And so I wanted to kind of comment on that as far as how it meets things tonight. I did download and read the full plan today and started to mark it up. The presentation was perfect because all the bullets I saw in there give your presenter big kudos because I marked probably about all of them that he put in there. But as I was looking through there, for the RDA folks to know, and as representatives, in fact, I wanted to kind of put a little bit of an not an overlay, but a model to that one. Let me go with the model first. So I hear a lot of executive reports. So there's a lot that in city government, U.S. government, we always have the executive, legislative, judicial. I hear a lot of executive reports and considerations to try to garner support into a legislative process. Legislative process is one of the prime public inputs that we all know about. Sorry, it's kind of like, you probably all know that, but what I'm concerned about is that when I looked at this particular plan as constructed by like inputs from executive and just kind of what we do in the legislative process at this point, I don't see still a majority push for really constructive public input. This is probably one of the options to do it, but my understanding is that this has been going on probably for about 9 months in parallel with the developers that went into the Cache Valley Marketplace area in the north. So my comment on that one first is if there's still ways to improve that, that would be great. I was thinking of, with my wife in conversation and others in our neighborhood, Adams neighborhood, we're very concerned about surveys, public outreach. You know, we do have neighborhood councils, but our leadership has shifted. I did not know about it. So any way to try to help that come from the city level would be perfect. And our neighborhood is very willing to continue to engage with that process, including, you know, all of us being here tonight. So the theme that I wanted to put with anything here forward that I comment on is healthy community spaces.
So the time is up, but I'll allow you to finish and I'll give you 30 seconds.
Perfect. So 30 seconds. So anything that we go forward with, I really would like to be under the evaluation of the leadership or the representatives is healthy community spaces. We're going to be losing some with the mall. We're hoping to gain those, but it's not clear how they're going to come and how it's going to affect. In 10 seconds, the portion of the mall which is being worked with the developer is actually working really well. Thank you. Us living right next to the neighborhood on the east on your diagram, that says single-family homes. It scares me with what can be done with the boundaries that are listed under RDA. So what I'm saying is I hope that the RDA can continue to receive public input to be able to make sure that those boundaries work against the boundaries of the neighborhood on the other way. And that could be something like according to like soundscape, you know, public spaces that could be there. It's all going to come under consideration very quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Frances Bushin again here from Logan. My concern is also like Joel, it seems like this has been discussed between the government and the developers. And I don't understand how this benefits us. It doesn't help our taxes go down. All these developments, all they do is create more traffic and pollution for us. And this is a very bad traffic area. I can't get out of my street on 200 East now. I think you ought to slow down with all this development that's going on. I just think, can we just take it a little slower, get more community involvement? You're saying there's blighted houses on 10th. That's affordable housing. They're not blighted. You know, your standard is your standard. It's not realistic. There's open areas there. I hate to see that gone. There just isn't room for all this concentrated development there. The mall, you could have put the library there if you had thought this through more carefully or listened to input. It's a great place to go when it's too cold or too hot out. A lot of seniors use it. And you're just going to tear it down. Well, at least don't put 4-story buildings there and so many cars. Let's just go a little slower on this, please. We can't take the traffic, you have no plan for the traffic. It's already so bad over there.
Just a couple of comments on that. There is a traffic study currently underway, which we expect will probably tell us there is a traffic signal needed at 1250 North and 200 East. So if that's, recommended, then we would go ahead and do that.
That's not going to help traffic. The congestion now, it's backed up the whole way.
And then the other thing that the city has said we'll do, we actually own almost 2 acres just east of PetSmart, and we are looking at turning that into a park to, again, provide more open space and green space for the Adams neighborhood, and could be utilized by this.
Right now, I can't even cross 200 East. I have to go halfway and wait for somebody to.
And we expect there would probably be a light at 1250 North.
A light's not going to help. It's not going to help the traffic. It's not going to help me get out of my street. And 400 East is backed up now too. I'm just asking you to please go a little slower, not use this, opportunity to put concentrated housing there. I mean, I guess something's going to happen. I guess you've decided you're going to tear down the mall, but how about just 2 stories or something? Just please. Just very frustrating. I've lived here 20 years.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else that would like to comment on this specific item? We'll bring it back to the council.
I will say that I believe that we have used this method in many areas of our community to help create a more vibrant community overall. We've used it downtown, and I believe that everyone would say Center Street is a win for everyone. It's a nice place to be. That's part of that area development. South Main, where all the new restaurants have gone, and the hotels was another one that was used for. Spring Hill Suites and the apartments behind it, that was another one that it was used for. I think that this is a way that the state has allowed communities to define areas that have potential for development. It doesn't mean that tomorrow we're going to tear it all down and do something different. As the mayor said, part of that green space will most likely turn into a park, and that's not, it's just part of the definition of the boundary. And I believe that it's good for us to create these, and I think they benefit the community overall, and I would move that we approve our 2328 RDA.
I'll second that. And I agree with Jeannie. I think, this is like one of the hard pieces of being on council, is that we're implementing changes that have a direct impact on specific individuals, and it's that trying to balance the needs of the community at large with the individual needs. And it's heart-wrenching for me often to see the emotion that this brings up in people, because I know that like change is hard for all of us. But as I look at that area where the mall is, and I've walked through it, and yes, people do utilize it, but they're not utilizing it for the purpose of what it was created. And I know we've talked too about we definitely need additional recreation opportunities here in our community, but trying to be respectful of property owners' rights as well. We've gotten some letters from people saying, please don't do that, put in, a giant green space or put in single-family homes. The city cannot mandate what somebody does with a project, but we can do our best to try to help make sure that it fits into the community in the best way possible. So I'm in support of creating this CRPA to help advance things in our city.
Just want to add, being the newest member of the council and learning about these mechanisms of how redevelopment can happen. That are hard. And also having had the opportunity to travel overseas and seeing how those cities are developed, I am thankful that we have a mechanism with multiple opportunities for the community to give feedback. And in the end, I do believe that their input influences how things go. Maybe we disagree sometimes with some of the opinions, but I personally, I'm thankful for people that reach out, that come to the meetings and give their opinions. And I respect your opinions, and I think I speak for everyone saying that we value you taking the time. It's not just 5 minutes. We understand that this takes hours of your time, and in the end, I think it makes the process better. So thank you for being here. Anything else you want to?
No, I think it's been said.
So it's been moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call. Mark, are you still there?
Yes, I am. My vote is aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Jeannie?
Aye.
And Ernesto, aye. Resolution 23-28 RDA is approved.
So can I just add too that I think you were pretty clear that this is about the area.
Yes.
So there will be definitely opportunity for public input. Now, we had opportunity for public input when we authorized the survey, and I think often that's like such a tough thing is how do we make sure that citizens understand what is being worked on. So please stay actively involved.
Any idea when the concept plan may come?
The concept plan won't
come here. Okay. So it'll be in the planning commission.
The budget will be workshopped on August 1 with a public hearing 2 weeks later.
Yes.
Again, we don't have dates. Again, once you approve it, then we will, assuming this council has approved it going forward, then we'll work to set up dates to go to the school board and the county council.
All right, thank you everyone for being here. Oh, was there something?
going to add, the mayor stated that just perfectly. One additional step would be the development agreement. Ultimately, if one is drafted, that would be brought to the RDA board for approval as well.
Yep, excellent. Thank you everyone. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you.